Marvel, I have Black Myth Wukong templates. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. The aerospace aircraft carrier crashed. Someone mentioned this question, which aroused everyone's curiosity and confusion. This is a bit incredible. But at this time, someone was surprised. Fuck, this question is not important. What's important is, didn't you hear Tathagata Buddha say, maybe in the future, it will be glorious again? What does this mean? This means that in the future, it may return to the glory of the ancient times. Then we may also learn their skills. I heard it, but I didn't say it, because I saw you were discussing Professor Lin's matter. Fuck, your interpretation made me suddenly enlightened. Is it true? There were discussions. People were excited and began to look forward to the future. Chen Haitian was also excited. He also understood the meaning of what the Phantom of Tathagata Buddha said. If it is true, it would be great. Chen Haitian said excitedly. I hope what I think is true. He looked at Sun Wukong again. Tathagata Buddha left, and it should be his turn to leave next. Chen Haitian planned to watch Lin Feng leave, but suddenly, he thought of something and hesitated. Then he made up his mind, and hurried to the direction where Lin Feng was. Lin Feng had just controlled the shadow of Tathagata Buddha to say those words, in order to pave the way for the mythological role he would play later. At this moment, he heard the excited voices in the city, and raised his mouth. Then, he was about to leave, but suddenly, a shout came from below. Wait a minute. Please wait a minute. Hearing the shout, Lin Feng paused and looked over. I saw an acquaintance running over. It's him. Lin Feng said secretly. He and Chen Haitian had met twice. Once was when they fought the destroyer. Another time was when he played Tathagata Buddha and went to the Ministry of State Security. He should be a leader of the Ministry of State Security. What does he want? Lin Feng was puzzled. He didn't understand why the other party called him. Chen Haitian ran to the bottom of Lin Feng and panted, Sun, Mr. Sun, please wait a moment. What do you want? I'm the director of the Ministry of State Security of China. Chen Haitian introduced himself. Then, after taking a breath, he said, I plan to create an organization of extraordinary people. I wonder if you are interested in joining? Chen Haitian looked respectful and smiled, but he was very nervous. He didn't know if he was being disrespectful. When Lin Feng heard this, he understood what he meant. He wanted to pull himself, that is, Sun Wukong, to join the official. However, he thought about it and said from the perspective of Sun Wukong, extraordinary organization? What is this? I don't understand. Lin Feng said while waving his hands. Chen Haitian was stunned for a moment, and then he reacted and explained. It means inviting people like you who have extraordinary powers to set up a department, that is, people of the country. Do you mean to be an official? Yes, you can understand it that way. Chen Haitian smiled, but Lin Feng immediately shook his head and said, No, I, old Sun, have a resistance to being an official. Let's talk about this later. Goodbye. After that, Lin Feng turned into a stream of light, flew away at a high speed, and soon disappeared. Chen Haitian was stunned. There was a feeling of being rejected inexplicably. But even though he refused, the other party didn't seem to think that he had no respect for his presumptuous invitation. This made him feel relieved. Thor stood there, looking at the direction where Lin Feng turned into a stream of light and flew away. He heard the conversation between Lin Feng and Chen Haitian. He thought about it and made a decision in his heart. Gu Yi stared at the direction where Lin Feng left in a daze. He was thoughtful and had a plan in his mind. At the same time, on the aerospace aircraft carrier, Nick and Captain America looked at the screen displayed on the tablet. Sun Wukong flew away. This time, the aliens invaded the Earth through the space tunnel, and it was completely over. But this incident will definitely be recorded in the history of countries around the world. Recalling the fierce battle at the scene, and on the tablet, the two still felt shocked. The alien army that covered the sky and the sun, the giant mechanical worm with a terrifying and hideous shape, and the golden shadow and Sun Wukong's clone, etc. All of them were shocked, especially Nick. Nick also remembered that he wanted to go to China to take advantage of the situation. If China wanted support, it had to offer benefits. However, in such a battle situation, they could not help at all. Even if Nick had not been decisive and resolute at that time and gave the order to return, he might have been mistaken for an alien and killed by Sun Wukong. Thinking of this, Nick felt more and more that his decision to return was correct. Woo woo woo. But suddenly, a rapid alarm sounded. The two people standing by the railing changed their faces. Nick quickly took out the walkie-talkie and asked, "What happened?" "Director, there is a strange thing flying towards our mothership at a high speed." "What?" Nick was startled and asked again, "What is it?" "It's not clear for the time being, but at the speed of the other party. If it doesn't stop, it will hit us in half a minute." Nick was startled again. He felt a little puzzled. Captain America next to him also looked nervous and surprised. But suddenly, he thought of something, took a breath, his expression changed, and he quickly said to Nick, "Mr. Fury, I think I know what it is." "You?" Nick was puzzled when he heard this. "Well," Captain America said, "do you still remember that Sun Wukong said at that time that there was another monster that escaped, and then he used his ability to condense a glowing stick and threw it out?" Nick frowned when he heard this, as if he was thinking back. But the next second, he was suddenly shocked and remembered this incident. Fuck. He didn't care at the time, thinking that Sun Wukong was talking about the real aliens who escaped. But now think about it, the direction that Sun Wukong threw at that time seemed to be the direction in which his aerospace aircraft carrier ran away. Or he ran too late and was spotted by Sun Wukong. Damn it! Exclamation mark. Thinking of this, he quickly said to the intercom, "Shoot it down. All air defense systems activated. Hurry up and shoot that thing down." Yes. The other party didn't know what was going on, but the director's tone was so urgent, it must be something bad. Boom 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 boom. All of a sudden, the air defense systems on the aerospace aircraft carrier were all activated, and anti-aircraft shells were fired one after another. Bang 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 bang. The explosions were heard, and white smoke billowed, making it difficult to see the situation. Nick and Captain America were extremely nervous, not knowing whether it would work. But suddenly, the next moment, a golden light burst out of the white smoke and flew towards the aerospace aircraft carrier at high speed. Nick and Captain America's faces changed drastically, as if they were struck by lightning. Bang bang. There was a loud bang. The golden light suddenly penetrated the aerospace aircraft carrier from top to bottom. Under the powerful destructive force, the aerospace aircraft carrier immediately exploded, with a bang, flames blazing, thick smoke billowing, debris flying, and the power system paralyzed on the spot. Losing power, the aerospace aircraft carrier flying in the air immediately fell to the ground below. Chapter 52 Random Mission Released. Play the role of Erlang Shen. Boom boom boom. The aerospace carrier was emitting raging fire and billowing black smoke, and it was falling to the ground. The American soldiers were all screaming in panic, at a loss. Some were even blown out of the aerospace carrier by inertia and airflow. Damn it. Nick held the railing tightly, with a panicked look on his face. At this time, Captain America came from nowhere, with a parachute behind him. "Director, we have to jump down quickly." Captain America grabbed the railing and said anxiously. Nick knew it too, but he couldn't move at all now. As soon as he let go, he felt that he would be taken out by inertia. "I can't move," Nick replied. Captain America understood what he meant, so he grabbed Nick by the back of his collar and said, "Director, I'll count to 3, then you let go." "What are you going to do?" Captain America didn't explain, but counted by himself. 1, 2, 3. He threw with all his strength, and when Nick counted to 3, he let go of his hand with a look of shock, and then he was thrown out by Captain America. Nick screamed in panic. He was thrown more than 10 meters away by Captain America, and he was secretly shocked. Is this the power of a super soldier? However, he still doesn't even have the qualifications to compare with Sun Wukong and others, Nick thought to himself. At this moment, he found that Captain America was at most a powerful human being, but people like Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buddha should no longer be considered human beings. Boom boom boom. Captain America looked at Nick, then jumped towards him. He grabbed him in the air and then opened the parachute. With a bang, the parachute opened and the speed of the two people's descent slowed down. Since the American team was using a military parachute, it was of good quality and could withstand the weight of two strong men. Boom boom boom. The aerospace carrier was falling towards the city below with billowing black smoke and flames. Below was New York City. Nick's scalp was numb and his face was very ugly, but he had no ability to stop it. They didn't have people like Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buddha in the United States. It's over. Nick gritted his teeth and said, bang. There was a loud bang. The aerospace carrier hit the huge Statue of Liberty and broke it directly and then suddenly exploded, with flames rising into the sky, shaking the earth. The fragments and shockwaves generated by the explosion spread in all directions with a devastating momentum, and all buildings were flattened without exception. In the blink of an eye, the entire New York City was destroyed. The ground was in a mess, and smoke and flames were everywhere. The aerospace carrier can fly in the sky because it has a very strong power system. If such a power system explodes, the power cannot be small. Nick and Captain America were gritting their teeth, their expressions tense. This incident quickly spread around the world, and the top leaders of the United States were collectively shocked. A New York City is gone! Exclamation mark. But they couldn't show off their power in this matter. Who should they show off their power to? China? What does this matter have to do with China? China is also a victim, right? Show off their power to Sun Wukong? Judge him? That would be a life-threatening thing. What if Sun Wukong came to the United States to wreak havoc? Now it's just one city that has been destroyed. What if he destroys more cities? Who can bear this responsibility? So they can only swallow this loss. Moreover, they took the initiative to announce that it was aliens who destroyed New York City. Attic. Swish. A fiery red light flashed. Lin Feng's figure appeared. Lin Feng moved his mind and stopped acting. A brilliant light came out of him. The light dissipated, and he turned back to his own appearance. Lin Feng glanced at the story of Sun Wukong that he had sorted out on the table. This story was written by him during this period of time and he would use it in his lectures in a few days. Then, he looked forward to it again. I wonder how many role-playing points will increase this time. Role-playing points can be used to improve the role's role-playing authority. This is related to the strength of the role-playing strength. At this time, the system prompt sounded, ding. This role-playing is being settled. Settlement completed. Congratulations, Master. This role-playing has obtained a total of 4889 points. Among them, Sun Wukong obtained 4000 points, and Tathagata Buddha obtained 889 points. Name, Lin Feng. Roll card, Sun Wukong, Tathagata Buddha. Playing points, Sun Wukong 4078 points, Tathagata Buddha 889 points. Note, role-playing points cannot be used universally. The role-playing points obtained by a character can only be used for that character. Shock value. 175,382 points. Note, shock value can be used to purchase goods in the store, including but not limited to mythical character role cards. Lin Feng looked at the virtual panel that popped up. Last time, Sun Wukong's role-playing authority was upgraded to level 2, and there are still 78 role-playing points left. Lin Feng remembered this incident. He then asked, System, how many points are needed to upgrade to the next level of role-playing authority? Master, the next level of role-playing authority requires 2000 role-playing points, and so on. That means the 4th level requires 4000 role-playing points, and the 5th level requires 8000 role-playing points. Hiss. Lin Feng took a breath of cold air after hearing this. Good guy. Then this is not easy to upgrade. However, he changed his mind and accepted it. It's nothing more than playing a few more times. And he also figured out a rule, that is, the bigger the scene, the better, so that the role-playing points can be obtained. For example, the last time the destroyer was eliminated, it only increased by more than 900 points. But this time, Sun Wukong's points directly obtained 4000. As for why the Buddha's points were so few this time, Lin Feng thought that it should be because the Buddha only showed a phantom, not a physical body, and he didn't say a few words throughout the whole process. It is impossible to get more role-playing points in this situation. After thinking it through, Lin Feng said, "System, open them all." After the words fell, a new virtual panel appeared in front of him, with many products on it. Zio Zuan Feng. 250 shock value, Sabuti Patriarch. 100 million shock value, Zhu Beiji. 50,000 shock value, Sham Monk. 40,000 shock value. The order of the products was rather chaotic, as if they were not arranged according to strength and shock value price, and the pages looked a bit random. But Lin Feng didn't care about that. He said, "System, search for Erlang Shen Yang Jian's character card." "Okay, master." After that, Yang Jian's character card appeared in the mall. Yang Jian was holding a 3-pointed double-edged sword, wearing a silver white armor, and had 3 eyes on his face, but he didn't look weird at all. On the contrary, he had a handsome face, deep and firm eyes. At the same time, a sense of handsomeness and domineering came towards him. "This image is handsome." Lin Feng smiled. He looked at the shock value below again. He saw that the shock value required 150,000. "I currently have 170,000 shock value, which is more than enough to buy this." Lin Feng smiled. At this time, the system voice sounded again. "Ding. Master, after the system is upgraded, random tasks will be issued. The first random task is now issued. Random task, clear Erlang Shen, be dug out from the moon, shock the world, and then come to the world. Complete the random task to get a lot of role-playing points." Chapter 53, Hot Discussion Online, calling out to Lin Feng. Completing random tasks can earn you a lot of role-playing points. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Wouldn't that upgrade the role-playing privileges faster? Lin Feng became excited. Immediately, he began to think about how to get people to dig Yang Jian out on the moon. This is not an easy thing. First of all, I have to let people know that the moon is not simple, Lin Feng thought. At the same time, the internet has exploded, all of which are news about the invasion of aliens in Xiangjiang City. Although the situation at that time was tragic, like hell on earth. However, some people still risked their lives and secretly filmed the scene at that time. Once these videos were released, they quickly became a sensation on the entire network. No news can be compared with it. Penguin News, Fox News, China Daily, today's headlines, Weibo and other larger news platforms are all reporting on this incident. Douyin, Kuaishou and other short video platforms also have many live videos. It can be said that there is no need to search. Just open a short video or news software and you will get the news push of this incident. Because now this is a heat, as long as it is related to this matter, it can get a lot of clicks and attention. After watching the video, countless netizens from other places were surprised and shocked. They couldn't believe it was true. They didn't know about it before the battle, and they only found out about it through news like this on the internet. The alien army invaded the earth, and a phantom called Tathagata Buddha appeared. He delayed the invasion of the alien army by himself. Then he called Sun Wukong for help, and then Sun Wukong fought the alien army, used the art of clones, and beat the alien army to a pulp. In the end, the Phantom of Tathagata Buddha took action and saved all the citizens of Xiangjiang City who were killed by the alien army. Although the previous part was also very shocking, it was not so difficult to accept. The final resurrection was truly incredible! Exclamation mark. Fuck. What happened to this world? Is this still the world I have lived in for more than 20 years? Incredible. Too incredible. Don't believe in rumors. Don't spread rumors. This thing must be false. Rumors stop at the wise. Another wise man has come out. Everyone laugh at him. Ha ha ha. What kind of idiot is this? Isn't this asking for trouble? It's this time, and he still says such things? That's right. If you don't believe it, go to Xiangjiang City and see for yourself. I'm from Xiangjiang City. My home is gone and turned into ruins. Hiss. Then this thing is true? Fuck, I care more about the last words of Tathagata Buddha. Maybe in the future it will be glorious again. Doesn't this mean that the magnificent scenes of ancient times will reappear? If the characters of ancient times wake up one after another, then this kind of thing is really possible. Fuck, I remember that at the lecture held by Professor Fang Minimum of Huaking University, a man named Lin Feng also said this. What Lin Feng? You should call him Professor Lin. He has been hired by Huaking University now. What? Professor Lin said, in the future, people from the ancient times will wake up one after another, but he never said, maybe in the future, they will be glorious again. That's right. Professor Lin, come out for a moment. What do you think of this sentence? I heard that Professor Lin is sorting out the story of Sun Wukong recently, and will hold a lecture to talk about Sun Wukong in detail. Is this true? Fuck, this is too good to be true. When will it be held? I must be there this time. I was stuck on the highway last time. Damn it. What about the Buddha? Fuck, doesn't anyone pay attention to the situation in New York City, USA? It was also destroyed by aliens. There was a lot of discussion on the internet. There were all kinds of comments. However, many people were excited when they learned that Lin Feng was going to hold a lecture to talk about Sun Wukong in detail, and said they must go to the scene to listen. There were also many people calling for Lin Feng to come out and talk about his opinion on this sentence. United States. Tony Stark looked at the projected video screen in shock. In the picture, the Buddha resurrected all the dead people, including those who were injured and healed, and those whose arms and legs were broken and regrown. Tony took a breath, and his heart was in turmoil. He finally understood why he was severely poisoned with palladium and his life was hanging by a thread, but he woke up like nothing happened. It turned out that it was the Buddha's method that saved him. Such a method is simply unbelievable and incomprehensible. Tony pondered. He was weighing it. After a few seconds, he made a decision. Professor Fang, why are you here? Please sit down quickly. Lin Feng saw Fang Minimum coming over and hurriedly said, then got up to make tea. Fang Minimum sat down and smiled at Lin Feng's back. Professor Lin, don't bother, I'll sit down and leave. Haha. Lin Feng smiled and continued to make tea. Fang Minimum did not tell the Ministry of State Security about the investigation of Lin Feng, because in his opinion, this was just an insignificant matter, as long as Professor Lin Feng did not endanger the safety of the country and the people. Lin Feng made some tea and brought it over. Fang Minimum took the teacup, put it aside, and asked with a smile, Professor Lin, how is the story of Sun Wukong going? Now Xiangjiang City was invaded by aliens, and then solved by the phantom of Sun Wukong, the Buddha, which has attracted great attention and enthusiasm. The students in the school are also spreading the word, and they are looking forward to it when they learn that you are going to hold a lecture to talk about Sun Wukong in detail. After all, Sun Wukong did such a big thing this time. It's ready, and the lecture can be held in 2 days. Lin Feng said. That's great. Fang Minimum said. After the incident in Xiangjiang City, he was more curious about the story of Sun Wukong. Moreover, Sun Wukong has a different feeling for him, because he was the first to stand up and say that Sun Wukong was related to Chinese history and was a figure in China who had disappeared in the long river of history. Fang Minimum smiled and said, Professor Lin, in fact, I have another unwelcome request. Hearing this, Lin Feng looked at this old man who was almost crazy about history and felt a little confused. In his mind, Professor Fang should be the kind of person who would not hide personal matters about work, so why would he say this now? However, Lin Feng did not care. He smiled and asked, Professor Fang, you can talk about it. Okay. Professor Fang nodded repeatedly and said, after Professor Lin finishes the lecture, can you hand over the notes in your hand to the school for the students to view? Why? And I wrote it casually, it's just a manuscript. This is a detailed story about Sun Wukong, and it is also the first known record of Sun Wukong in the world. Therefore, it is a priceless treasure, enough to be passed down through the ages. I just want to keep it well. Lin Feng was a little surprised. He didn't expect that what he wrote casually could reach such a high level. However, he thought about the situation of this era and understood it, so he agreed. Chapter 54 Loki comes to visit Lin Feng again. Professor Fang was as excited as a 60-year-old child. He drank up the tea that Lin Feng had brewed and left happily. Lin Feng shook his head and smiled. Meanwhile, Chen Haitian was here. You two said that you wanted to join the superhuman organization of the Chinese Ministry of National Security? Chen Haitian frowned and looked at the two people sitting opposite him with a puzzled look. Yes. The two said at the same time, with a firm look. They were Tony and Thor. Chen Haitian. Chen Haitian thought for a moment, looked at Thor and said, aren't you the Prince of Asgard? Why don't you go back to Asgard and want to join our superhuman organization? After that, he looked at Tony Stark and said, and you are an American, an important figure in the United States, and the boss of Stark Industries. What are you doing for? Chen Haitian didn't understand what the two were planning. Because we want to get in touch with people like Sun Wukong and want to understand the power they hold, the two said in unison. They heard the conversation between Chen Haitian and Sun Wukong at that time and knew that Chen Haitian wanted to form an organization of extraordinary people, so they later decided to join this organization after careful consideration. Chen Haitian understood what he said and understood their thoughts. The power that Sun Wukong and his friends possessed was too mysterious and powerful, and it was normal to yearn for it. Moreover, let alone them, I also yearn for it. Chen Haitian said again, but Sun Wukong seems to have rejected my invitation, and from the look of him, he seems to have some resistance to being an official. Chen Haitian said, and thought of the situation at that time. He was a little curious about this situation, and wanted to know why Sun Wukong was like this. So, I'm not sure whether people like them will agree to join this organization of extraordinary people in the end. You two should think it over carefully. Chen Haitian said again. His meaning was very clear, that is, it is possible that your idea of contacting will fail, and if you want to join, you must be mentally prepared. Well, we know. Thor and Tony said. They also heard that Sun Wukong seemed not very happy at that time, so they knew the situation. But to put it another way, if they don't join the Huaxia organization, they will not be able to get in touch with people like Sun Wukong. Joining the organization, at least there is still a chance. Okay. Seeing the two people's firm attitude, Chen Haitian knew what they were thinking. He didn't say anything more and agreed. Moreover, this is a good thing. Thor is the prince of Asgard and has the power of Thunder God. And Tony owns Stark Industries Group and has the manufacturing process of Iron Man suit. These two people are just right for this extraordinary organization. This time, it's still thanks to Sun Wukong and others, otherwise they would not want to join this organization at all. However, I still hope that Sun Wukong can join in the end. Chen Haitian said secretly. At the same time, Lin Feng's side. Loki came to the door again. Lindaxu scholar. Lindaxu scholar. Loki shouted outside the door. He was wearing a casual suit, which was completely different from his previous outfit in Xiangjiang City. Lin Feng walked out. Seeing Loki, he frowned slightly and said, "It's you again." Loki said with a panicked look on his face, "Master Lin, your information is wrong. Loki has not had a good time these days. He dared not stay on Earth, fearing that he would be caught and retaliated by Sun Wukong. So he used the power of the cosmic cube to escape to another planet and hid for a few days. Until today, he used the cosmic cube to return to Earth to find Lin Feng. Lin Feng was thoughtful. He originally thought that Loki was here to cause trouble. After all, he had fooled him at that time. But looking at his reaction and attitude, it seems that he is not here for revenge, but simply to find him and say that the information is wrong. Lin Feng thought about it. In this case, let's continue to tease him. Lin Feng pretended not to know what Loki was talking about and said, "Intelligence? What intelligence? It's Sun Wukong's." Loki said, "Didn't you say before that Sun Wukong is not strong? He is okay fighting alone, but he will be defeated if he is besieged. But he did not lose when facing the siege of the alien army, and he is ridiculously strong." When Lin Feng heard this, he instantly thought of how to answer him. He said, "So it's this matter. My previous research results were wrong, and I found this problem later. Sun Wukong was actually very powerful when he was besieged. I was planning to find you and explain this to you, but I found that there seems to be no contact information for you." When Loki heard this, he thought to himself, "It's exactly what I guessed!" Exclamation mark. Loki had suspected that Lin Feng was deliberately deceiving him before. But he changed his mind and thought that this was impossible. Lin Feng didn't know his identity, so there was no reason to lie to himself. So, he thought that Lin Feng must have made such a conclusion because his research results were wrong. But he didn't get angry because mistakes are inevitable in academic research. It's just that he was a little unwilling in his heart. A good plan was ruined by Sun Wukong again. Lin Feng said again, However, isn't it a good thing that Sun Wukong is powerful? The Earth is not invaded by aliens, and the alien invaders are killed without leaving a single piece of armor. Loki was stunned by this question, and was stunned on the spot. He couldn't say that he was the invading alien, right? So, he could only force his smile and said, yes, this is indeed a good thing. Seeing Loki admitting that he was killed without leaving a single piece of armor, Lin Feng couldn't stop laughing in his heart. He said again, however, Sun Wukong is also limited in strength. He is not invincible. Loki heard this, his heart moved, and hurriedly asked, Professor Lin, what do you mean? I don't know the specific situation for the time being, but I found out through research that Sun Wukong seemed to be defeated and locked up later. Loki's eyes lit up when he heard this. He used to think that Sun Wukong was very powerful, and it seemed hopeless for him to deal with him and then occupy the earth. However, after hearing what Lin Feng said, he suddenly felt that he could do it again. Professor Lin, can you be sure this time? Are the research results correct? In order to prevent the last thing from happening again, Loki asked this time. Well, it won't be wrong this time, Lin Feng said, but how was he locked up? I haven't figured it out yet. Okay, I know, Loki said excitedly. It doesn't matter how he was locked up, as long as he can be locked up. This shows that he is not invincible. Hey, why do you seem excited to hear that Sun Wukong is not invincible? Really? Loki was startled and quickly reacted, saying, haha, maybe I was chatting with Professor Lin and got the information about Sun Wukong first, so I was more excited. Oh, so that's the case. Lin Feng nodded deliberately. Loki smiled again, thinking, what a close call, worthy of being a great scholar. Too observant, almost discovered the clues. But suddenly, he thought of something and said, you speculated before that other characters will wake up next. The shadow of Tathagata Buddha also said this, which confirms what you said before. Do you know who will be the next person to wake up? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Loki wants to make trouble again. Lin Feng holds a lecture. When Lin Feng heard this, he pretended to ponder for a moment and said, the next one should be Yang Jian. Yang Jian. Hearing this, Loki felt that this name seemed a bit ordinary. He asked Lin Feng again, is he powerful? Lin Feng shook his head. Not powerful? Loki's heart moved. No, I haven't started to study him yet. Loki was stunned. But then, Lin Feng said, however, according to my research during this period, these ancient characters will not be too strong when they just wake up. Lin Feng's words did not fool Loki. The character just played only has the first level of role-playing authority and can only exert 10% of the character's power. Loki was stunned when he heard this. Immediately, he hurriedly recalled. This careful recollection really reminded him of a highlight. That is, when he first met Sun Wukong, he felt that his strength was weaker than the second time he met him. Because the first time, Sun Wukong seemed to only use the iron rod in his hand to attack. Thinking of this, he took a breath and looked shocked. I have received a great news. Loki was excited and said to Lin Feng, thank you, Mr. Lin, for telling me this. You're welcome. Looking at Loki's excitement, Lin Feng knew that he had been fooled by him again and laughed in his heart. He said again, I studied these things to make these people and events in ancient times appear in front of the world. Yes. Loki nodded heavily. These words touched him deeply. This is what a great scholar does, selflessly dedicating knowledge. Loki said again, don't worry, Mr. Lin, I will give you a generous gift in a while. What do you mean? Haha, you will know later. Loki smiled. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. Loki stood up and left in a hurry. Lin Feng looked at Loki's back, thinking. Loki walked out of the garden. After listening to Lin Feng's words, he wanted to kill Sun Wukong and occupy the earth again. Because the current situation is that the Buddha has fallen into a deep sleep again, and Sun Wukong is not invincible, plus Yang Jian is about to wake up. But he has just woken up, so his strength will not be too strong, so the earth can still be attacked now. and the generous gift he just said to Lin Feng is to repay Lin Feng and pass on this information. Mr. Lin is such a great man. Loki sighed. He came here twice, and he taught him all his knowledge. Soon, Loki saw that there was no one around, so he took out the cosmic cube and left Asgard's library. It was pitch black. Loki used the power of the cosmic cube to come here and search for books in the dark. Dwarfs, Knights of Light, Ether Energy, the Doomsday Disaster of the Nine Kingdoms. Loki flipped through these books anxiously, wanting to find a new backer quickly. Because for now, there is only one Sun Wukong on the earth. Even if this young giant wakes up, he has just woken up and is not very powerful, so it is easy to deal with. Moreover, Thanos does not allow failure. But not only did he fail, he also donated the notorious Chitauri Legion that conquered the galaxy. And he also had the Mind Scepter and the Cosmic Cube in his hands, so you can imagine how much Thanos wanted to find him at this time. And once Thanos finds him, how miserable will his end be? Dark Elves. At this time, Loki's heart trembled, and he found a record about the Dark Elves. Loki is different from Thor. Loki likes to read books, which is why he calmed down and studied witchcraft with his mother. And because he read a lot of books, he is also knowledgeable. He knows the race of Dark Elves. This is a strong race that is not afraid of life and death. In the heyday of Asgard, it took a lot of power to defeat the Dark Elf army. However, such a defeat was only because of a trick to some extent. When the Nine Kingdoms are lined up, the Dark Elves may wake up. Hiss, isn't that during this period? Loki was shocked. In the near future, there will be a wonder of 9 stars in a row. That is, 9 kingdoms will be lined up in a row. However, such a wonder may actually awaken the Dark Elves! Exclamation mark. Loki did not expect it, but his heart was beating wildly, because he wanted to use this race of Dark Elves. However, this race was too evil. Would there be uncontrollable situations at that time? Loki hesitated. However, he thought about it. The situation was critical at the moment, and there was no other way. Thanos must be looking for him. If he was found, it would be over. On the Earth, Sun Wukong must die, and his grand plan was destroyed one after another. This kind of thing is intolerable. After hesitating again and again, Loki gritted his teeth, made up his mind, and decided to do it. But I should think about how to make the Dark Elves listen to me. Loki thought. Earth. The heat of Xiangjiang City being attacked by the alien army has been still there. At this moment, the official of King University also released a Weibo, announcing that a new lecture will be held at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. At that time, Professor Lin Feng will attend the lecture and tell the story of Sun Wukong in detail. As soon as this Weibo post came out, it caused a huge sensation. Major news platforms rushed to report it, and short video platforms also appeared on this news. As I said before, now things related to ancient times are very popular and can attract great attention in minutes. Netizens are discussing it hotly. Fuck, is this true or false? Nonsense, it must be true. It was released by King official website. How could it be false? Awesome. I'm so curious about the details of Sun Wukong. Me too. Especially this time, Sun Wukong destroyed the alien army that invaded the Earth. I'm even more curious about him. Hahaha, we all think the same thing. I'll buy a ticket to Beijing right now. I want to listen to it live. I've already bought the tickets. Fuck, there are no more tickets. Hahaha, I heard the news a long time ago, so I came to Beijing 3 days ago. Last time I was stuck in traffic on the highway. This time, I must see the live lecture. 6666. Brother is still so cool. I have to go to work, so I can only watch the live broadcast. Fuck. Gentlemen, calm down. Beijing is so small, we can't handle so many of you. That makes sense. Then send Professor Lin to Zhejiang quickly. Zhejiang has convenient transportation and a large area that can accommodate so many people. Zhangxi. Oh. Is Zhejiang a big area? Hahaha. I don't know if Professor Lin knows about Tathagata Buddha. I'm also curious about him. Yes, I'm looking for this comment. I'm curious about him too. It's a pity that we can't go to the scene. Brothers, if any one of you goes to the scene, please ask Professor Lin if he can tell us about Tathagata Buddha. Haha, you can. There were heated discussions. In a short time, it dominated the hot search list of major platforms. Netizens were full of expectations and excitement for this lecture. Soon, time came to the second day. The lecture arrived as scheduled. Chapter 56, Lin Feng's Influence. King University. Auditorium. It was still half an hour before 10 o'clock, but the audience had already entered the hall. There were teachers, professors, and students from King, as well as people from the society, and even many celebrities, entrepreneurs, etc. Everyone took their seats one after another, and soon the place became lively. It's finally about to start. Damn. I almost got late. Last time I got stuck on the highway, and this time I got stuck on the North 4th Ring Road. There were too many people. Hahaha, Beijing is always jammed, and now that Professor Lin is going to give a lecture, it's even more jammed. Fortunately I had foresight, and came to King University, to wait at 2 in the morning. Hahaha, I didn't see the scene last time, but this time I can finally see it in person. I wonder if I can ask Professor Lin for an autograph. Fuck. Don't use the fan circle tricks on Professor Lin, okay? That's right. Professor Lin is a scholar, he doesn't do that. I wonder if Professor Lin will talk about the Tathagata Buddha. I don't know. What time is it? What time is it? It's 9:50, and it's going to start in 10 minutes. Hahaha, so exciting. I wonder what Professor Lin will say about Sun Wukong. Yeah, I'm excited too. The discussion continued. Lin Feng's good friend Tang Yiming was also there. He was full of excitement, waiting for his friend's lecture to begin. Tang Yiming was shocked for a long time before he came out. He never thought that Lin Feng actually did some research on Sun Wukong. He had always thought that he was just bragging. The two of them had almost the same level of history, but Lin Feng secretly studied Sun Wukong, which made him feel extremely surprised and unexpected. Chen Haitian also came with Thor and Tony. They would not miss this lecture on Sun Wukong. Soon, it was 10 o'clock. The live broadcast equipment was turned on at the same time. In the live broadcast room, there were already many people waiting. As soon as the live broadcast was turned on, netizens immediately became excited. Here it comes. There are pictures. Hahaha, it must be hard to wait. Yeah. Where's Professor Lin? Where's Professor Lin? Fuck, I envy those who are on the scene. Yeah, it's a pity that I have to go to work, otherwise I would have gone to the scene too. It's useless. I'm at King University now, but I can't get in at all. There are too many people. I can only watch the live broadcast outside. Huh. I wonder if the guy who was blocked on the highway managed to get to the scene this time. Hahaha. Professor Fang Minimum walked up to the podium with an excited and smiling face and said, "Everyone, welcome to the lecture at King University. I'm Fang Minimum, a professor in the history department of King University." Fang Minimum paused, then smiled and said, "Last time, I told you about the basic situation of Sun Wukong. Everyone should be familiar with Sun Wukong. If it weren't for him in the incident in Zhangjiang City, our Earth might have been in the war of invasion by alien civilizations. So, I believe that after this incident, everyone must be more curious about Sun Wukong." Fang Minimum smiled and said, "This time, our newly hired Professor Lin Feng will tell you the detailed story of Sun Wukong. Let's welcome Professor Lin." After that, Fang Minimum took the lead in applauding. Principal Zhao Songgyang and a group of old professors also applauded excitedly. For a while, the audience applauded loudly. In the applause, a young and slender figure walked up to the podium. He was Lin Feng. Everyone was familiar with Lin Feng's appearance because the video of Lin Feng's speech at the last lecture held by Fang Minimum had been circulated. People who pay attention to this matter have watched the video and know what he looks like. What's more, most of the audience at the scene were also here last time. Lin Feng stood on the podium. Professor Fang Minimum nodded and smiled at him, and then walked away. But after the applause from the audience disappeared, most people shouted to ask Lin Feng questions. And when this situation appeared, it seemed to cause a chain reaction, and the audience instantly became noisy. In short, it was much more enthusiastic than when Fang Minimum held a lecture before. But the security personnel were distressed by such a situation. How can they continue with such a noise? And now it is a live broadcast. If they continue like this, it will be troublesome if some people get emotional and rush to the podium. So the security personnel took the loudspeaker and began to maintain order. Quiet. Everyone please be quiet. Stop arguing. Stop arguing. The lecture site needs to be quiet. But no matter what they said, it didn't work. They still argued. Principals Ao Sangayang and Fang Minimum were also surprised to see such a situation. I didn't expect this situation. Isn't this too fanatical? No, we have to stop it quickly. We can't let them continue to argue, otherwise the lecture can't be held. But just when the two were about to go on stage to stop it, they saw Lin Feng stretched out his hand and pressed down. Then, the audience instantly quieted down, and there was no sound. Zhao Sangayang and Fang Minimum saw this scene and immediately froze in place. Immediately, they reacted. This is Lin Feng's current influence. I have been teaching for a lifetime, and this is the first time I have seen such a thing. Fang Minimum said in surprise. Me too. Zhao Sangayang nodded. They could understand this situation. Now everyone wanted to know about Sun Wukong, so naturally the focus was on Lin Feng. If he asked everyone to be quiet, then everyone would naturally quiet down. After the audience was quiet, Lin Feng smiled and said to the microphone, "Everyone, don't get excited. If you have any questions, you can ask them later. You are so noisy that I can't continue." As soon as these words came out, everyone's heart tightened instantly, worried that Professor Lin would not talk because of this. However, Lin Feng smiled again and said, "So, I hope everyone can keep quiet when I tell the story of Sun Wukong. Thank you everyone." After Lin Feng finished speaking, the audience was still silent. However, they were relieved in their hearts. Fortunately, Professor Lin was not angry. Very good. Seeing this, Lin Feng smiled and nodded, saying, "Then I'm going to start. The story will be a bit long. Please listen patiently." Professor Fang said before that Sun Wukong was born in Huaguo Mountain, and the details are that Sun Wukong was conceived from a piece of stone left behind by a powerful woman, who made stones to repair the sky. He gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the essence of the sun and the moon. Lin Feng began to talk, and the audience was still quiet, but they were not calm in their hearts, but were extremely shocked by Lin Feng's opening story. Damn. Repairing the sky? What does this mean? It feels so awesome. And who is this woman? Everyone was very curious and shocked, but they held back and did not ask questions for fear of interrupting Professor Lin's explanation. Lin Feng talked about Sun Wukong's birth and his going out to sea to learn from his master. Under the careful teaching of his master, Sun Wukong learned the art of immortality, the 72 changes, and the somersault cloud. Chapter 57 The story of Sun Wukong making trouble in heaven. The art of immortality, as the name suggests, is the ability to live forever. And the 72 transformations. There are 72 abilities. Professor Fang has also talked about the somersault cloud before. Sun Wukong can travel 1,000 miles with one somersault. Hiss. Everyone took a breath. Professor Fang had also talked about Sun Wukong before, but not as detailed as Professor Lin. Now everyone knows the functions of these abilities and is surprised. The art of immortality. Fuck, is this true? 72 transformations, that is, 72 abilities? Why haven't we seen Sun Wukong use them? Does creating a clone count? But this is only one. What about the others? Everyone had questions in their hearts. But they all tacitly did not ask, and kept quiet, listening quietly to Lin Feng's explanation. Sun Wukong returned from his studies. The flower fruit mountain was hunted by hunters. Many monkeys were killed and injured. Sun Wukong killed the hunters. Later, Sun Wukong felt that he needed a weapon that suited his needs, so he went to the Dragon Palace in the East China Sea. The Dragon King of the East China Sea took out several weapons, but Sun Wukong felt that none of them were suitable. The Dragon King of the East China Sea said that there was a piece of magic iron needle, which was useless in the Dragon Palace. If you can move it, then take it. Sun Wukong picked up the magic iron needle and found that it was a treasure. And this magic iron needle was the golden hoop stick. Professor Fang Minimum also said before that the information about the golden hoop stick was basically the same as what I had researched. But there is one thing, the golden hoop stick can grow or shrink according to Sun Wukong's mind. Hearing this, everyone was surprised again. Fuck, that iron rod has such a function? Awesome. But why haven't we seen Sun Wukong use this ability? Everyone still had questions in their hearts. However, they still did not speak to interrupt Lin Feng's explanation. After Sun Wukong got the golden hoop, he felt it was very handy and was very happy. But when the Dragon King of the East China Sea found out that the magic iron needle was actually a treasure that could grow or shrink, he changed his mind and didn't want to give it to Sun Wukong. However, he knew that the people in the Dragon Palace couldn't deal with Sun Wukong, so he had to give up and let Sun Wukong take it away. Not long after, the soul collecting messenger from the underworld came and took away Sun Wukong's soul. The soul is the most important thing for a person. If you don't have a soul, then you are dead. And the underworld is the place where souls are taken away. However, I haven't started to study the details of the underworld yet. Lin Feng is now talking about Sun Wukong. If he mixes all these miscellaneous things together, there will be too much to say, and it will be confusing, which will make the audience dizzy. So he briefly talked about the situation in the underworld. But when the audience heard this, their hearts tightened, and they realized that danger was coming. Sun Wukong's soul was taken away. The soul collecting messenger brought Sun Wukong's soul to the underworld to be judged, and the judge said that Sun Wukong's lifespan had ended. Lin Feng said. But when the people in the audience heard this, they were collectively stunned. That's not right. Sun Wukong's lifespan has ended? Didn't he learn the art of immortality before? And the audience on the internet also sent out barrages to ask this question. Fuck, something is wrong. It must be 12 points wrong. Yes. Didn't Sun Wukong learn the art of immortality? There is something fishy. There is definitely something fishy. That's right. This underworld must have made a mistake. Barrages were everywhere, all talking about this matter. No one thought that Professor Lin's research was wrong. Because it's very simple. Sun Wukong can live until now. He must have learned the art of immortality. So in this case, 9 out of 10 times, the underworld made a mistake. Lin Feng seemed to know that everyone was confused about this and deliberately stopped to explain this problem. I know everyone is wondering about this question. Let me share my opinion. I think that either Sun Wukong's master did not teach the conventional art of immortality, which was not recognized by the underworld, or the underworld made a mistake. As soon as this was said, everyone nodded and agreed with this statement. Lin Feng continued to explain. When Sun Wukong heard this, he argued with the other party on the spot, saying that he had practiced the art of immortality, but the other party was arrogant and unreasonable, insisting that Sun Wukong's lifespan had ended, and he was dead. How could Sun Wukong tolerate this? He overturned the underworld on the spot, destroyed the Book of Life and Death, and returned to the world. When everyone heard this, they felt excited and refreshed. Haha, well done. So cool. Awesome. This is how it should be. He has practiced the art of immortality, but he still comes to collect souls? Isn't this bullying? Everyone was excited, but no one spoke to interrupt Lin Feng's explanation. After Sun Wukong came back to life, the underworld in the Dragon Palace in the East China Sea complained to the Heavenly Palace. One said that Sun Wukong had caused trouble in the underworld, and the other said that Sun Wukong had stolen his treasure. They asked the Lord of the Heavenly Palace to make the decision for them. Lin Feng paused here and said, I haven't figured out the name of this Lord of the Heavenly Palace yet, so I'll use this code name instead. All you need to know is that he is a very powerful person. Lin Feng continued, the Lord of the Heavenly Palace originally wanted to send troops to capture Sun Wukong, but was stopped by a civil servant. The civil servant said it would be better to recruit him and give him a position so that they could restrain the other party without using any soldiers. So they recruited Sun Wukong, but only gave him a small position. But Sun Wukong didn't know this and worked diligently every day. Until one day he found out about this. He got angry and felt that the Heavenly Palace was humiliating him, so he returned to Huago Mountain and proclaimed himself the great sage equaling heaven. When everyone heard this, they were shocked and felt that the Heavenly Palace was indeed humiliating. However, I finally know how the title of the Great Sage equaling heaven came from. Later, when the Heavenly Palace knew about it, they wanted to make trouble again, but they were stopped by the civil officials, saying that it was just a title anyway, and he could give it to him if he wanted. If he was given a nominal position to restrain him, he would be content. So, they found Sun Wukong again, and said that they recognized his title, and gave him a high official position. Sun Wukong still didn't know about this, and went to the Heavenly Palace to work happily. Until one time, the Heavenly Palace held a grand event, but did not invite Sun Wukong. When Sun Wukong learned about this, he didn't believe that he was such a big official, but he didn't invite him. So he stopped a person to ask about the situation, and the other person told Sun Wukong the truth. Sun Wukong was furious, and he immediately made a scene at the grand event, and returned to Huago Mountain. This time, the Lord of the Heavenly Palace no longer recruited him, but sent 100,000 heavenly soldiers and generals to deal with Sun Wukong. But they couldn't do anything with Sun Wukong, and later a real lord was sent to catch Sun Wukong. This real lord was named Yang Jian. His title was Erlang Zian Shengzhenjin. Hearing this, everyone was shocked and confused. It felt like listening to a fabricated story. However, everyone has seen how powerful Sun Wukong is. Everyone was shocked. But at this time, they found that Lin Feng did not continue to talk, and they became curious. Go on, why don't you continue? Lin Feng sorted out the manuscript, and then said to the microphone, at present, this is all I have studied about the story of Sun Wukong, and the follow-up has not been studied yet. When these words came out, everyone in the audience was collectively stunned. Chapter 58 Audience Questions. Who is Tathagata Buddha? Immediately, everyone reacted and could not sit still, shouting excitedly. Professor Lin, is that all? Tell me more. Yes. Tell me more. You must have researched more than these, right? There must be some, even if it is not organized. Tell me. Professor Lin is not satisfied now. I really want to know what happened to Sun Wukong later. That's right. Tell me more. Professor Lin. Professor Lin. The audience was excited, shouting for Lin Feng to say more, and finally even shouted Lin Feng's name collectively. The voice was uniform and loud. Principals Ao Sangayang and Fang Minimum saw this scene. Their faces changed again. They were really afraid that these audiences would not be able to control their emotions and run to the podium. At this time, Lin Feng stretched out his hand and pressed it down. The voices in the audience gradually disappeared again, until it was completely quiet at last. Zhao Sangayang and Fang Minimum took a breath again, a little surprised, but they were also relieved. Fortunately, Professor Lin was still able to control the situation. Seeing that the curiosity of the audience was further magnified, Lin Feng smiled. That's what he wanted. He said, I'm really sorry, everyone. I'm still researching the follow-up of Sun Wukong. I'll announce it when I've sorted it out. Lin Feng smiled and quickly ended the topic, saying, now if you have any questions about Sun Wukong, you can ask them. I'll tell you what I know. As soon as he said this, the audience began to whisper to each other. But there were so many people in the audience, even if they were whispering, the voices were loud. Oh, what a pity, I can't get enough of it. Yeah. I really want to know what happened to Sun Wukong later. Could he have been killed? Speechless. Do you want to think about what you're talking about? That's right. If Sun Wukong was killed, who killed the alien army in Xiangjiang City? You. Ha ha ha. Don't you use your brain when you speak. There were a lot of voices. Lin Feng's good friend Tang Yiming was sitting in the audience, very excited, and looked at Lin Feng with some envy. He was excited because he knew so many things about Sun Wukong, which was an exciting thing for him. As for envy, last time, everyone was sitting together in the audience, but this time, Lin Feng stood directly on the stage, explaining the story of Sun Wukong, attracting the attention of everyone. As a friend, it is impossible not to be envious. Chen Haitian looked surprised. After listening to what Lin Feng said, he finally knew why Sun Wukong was against being an official. So that's the case. Chen Haitian murmured. Tony and Thor were shocked. They focused on Sun Wukong's cultivation skills and what Lin Feng said about Sun Wukong's experience. The Dragon Palace in the East China Sea, the Soul Binding Palace in the Underworld, and the Heavenly Palace all made them feel extremely curious and shocked. That was really a magical era. The two thought at the same time. Especially Tony. He is still an Earthling. However, there are no such places on the Earth now. Where did these places go? Tony frowned slightly, unable to figure it out. In the live broadcast room, the audience also sent out barrages. Fuck, it's already over. I haven't heard enough. Who said it wasn't? I'm so curious about what happened to Sun Wukong later. Okay, don't be ungrateful. These things we heard were the result of Professor Lin's painstaking research. Yeah, it must be very difficult for Professor Lin to research so many things. Damn. Didn't Professor Lin say to ask questions, if you have any? Why is no one asking questions? Who's here? Please help me ask. Why did Tathagata Buddha call Sun Wukong fighting Buddha? I'm curious about this question. Barrage of comments. After a whisper, someone finally stood up. Everyone was stunned when they saw this person. Damn, why is it him again? Does this grandson like to show off so much? This person was the student who stood up and asked questions at Professor Fang's lecture before. Zuzuo. Zuzuo looked at Lin Feng and smiled. Professor Lin, do you still remember me? Yes. Lin Feng said, you are the student who asked Professor Fang questions at the lecture held by Professor Fang before. Yes. What questions do you have now? I want to ask, you said that the golden hoop can be enlarged or reduced, right? But I have seen the video. That iron rod, no matter how you look at it, can't be enlarged or reduced, right? After this, some people also realized this problem. Lin Feng smiled and explained, you are looking at things of that era with the eyes of modern people. That era cannot be viewed with common sense. For example, let me give you the simplest example. A person, no matter what, can't turn into a stream of light, right? But the characters of that era can. For example, the Monkey King we are all familiar with. So from this point of view, his golden hoop can be enlarged or reduced. What's so strange about it? Hiss. Zuzuo took a breath. Lin Feng's words of using people to talk about things made Zuzuo feel suddenly enlightened. He understood. So that's it. He sat down. When everyone heard this, they also felt that it made sense. That era was magical. It was not strange that an iron rod had the ability to grow bigger or smaller. When Thor heard this, he felt the most deeply, because his hammer was magical. Not only could it summon lightning, but it would come as long as he wanted it to come. But suddenly, Thor realized something and quickly stopped thinking about it. If he wanted the hammer to come over and it flew over, it would definitely destroy the surrounding buildings and affect this lecture. At this time, another person stood up. Moreover, he was a monk. He said, Professor Lin, I'm the abbot of Jinggang Temple, and my Dharma name is Huski. I would like to ask you, who is the Tathagata Buddha who appeared in Xiangjiang City? Huski looked puzzled and confused. When everyone saw the monk coming, they were all stunned. In their impression, these guys seemed to be pure and unselfish, and they didn't like to join in the fun. Why are they here? To listen to the lecture now. It was mentioned before that, although there are no myths and legends in this world, Taoism and Buddhism still exist. It's just that they don't know what characters to worship. When Lin Feng first appeared as Tathagata Buddha, the unknown sculptures in their temple were broken. This surprised them, and at the same time they had a premonition of something. Later, when they saw the video of Tathagata Buddha in Xiangjiang City, they were completely shocked, as if they had some connection with Tathagata Buddha, but they couldn't tell why. So, this made them eager to find out who Tathagata Buddha was. Lin Feng heard this, and looked at Uzuki. He had expected this situation. After Tathagata Buddha appeared, it would inevitably arouse a curiosity of Buddhist monks, and they would want to know who Tathagata Buddha was. Although it is not clear why Taoism and Buddhism can still exist in this world without myths and legends. But it doesn't matter. Since they don't know who they should worship, then I will tell them who they should worship and recreate the real Taoism and Buddhism. Lin Feng smiled in his heart. He said, I haven't studied the specific information of Tathagata Buddha, but I can be sure of one thing. He is the Buddha, which is the belief of your monks. You Buddhists should build a golden body for him to worship, instead of worshipping those unknown things. Chapter 59 The abbot is grateful to Lin Feng. You have a connection with Buddha. As soon as this was said, everyone in the room was shocked. Tathagata Buddha is actually a Buddhist belief. This is too sudden, isn't it? However, thinking about it carefully, he does seem to have a connection with Buddhism. First of all, he is a bald head. Secondly, there is Buddha in his name. And there is also a word ancestor. This word is not ordinary. Not everyone can be called ancestor. He trembled all over, and his confused eyes gradually brightened, as if he understood something. Finally, he looked a little excited, put his hands together, and couldn't help but say, Amitabha. These 4 words were recited when the phantom of Tathagata Buddha appeared, and before that, this sentence did not exist in this world. He said gratefully, "Thank you, Mr. Lin, for pointing out the way for my Buddhism. It turns out that for thousands of years, my Buddhism has been wrong. Shame on you. If it weren't for Mr. Lin today, I don't know how long my Buddhism would go wrong." He was ashamed. Then, he said, "Mr. Lin has a connection with Buddha. Please come visit me someday, Amitabha." After that, he left his seat in a hurry and walked away without looking back. His steps were quite fast. He wanted to quickly inform all the Buddhist temples in the world about this situation, to rectify the chaos and put an end to the wrong behavior for thousands of years. But when Lin Feng heard this, he thought, what does this monk mean? Could it be that he wants to lead me into Buddhism? Whenever a monk says that you have a connection with Buddha, it is very likely. Everyone was stunned, thinking it was not easy to get into the lecture, and now it is not over yet, so why are you in a hurry to leave? Isn't that a loss? What if there is a secret behind it? However, they thought about it and understood his mood. Buddhism has been wrong for thousands of years. Now, thanks to Professor Lin's guidance, they understand that Tathagata Buddha is the belief of Buddhism. Shouldn't they be excited to tell all the Buddhist temples in the world about this? Anyone would be so excited. Just as the lecture was in full swing, no one realized that a once-in-a-millennium wonder was slowly forming. When such a wonder appeared, the universe and time would gradually overlap, and a space-time channel might be opened between the 9 kingdoms. This space-time channel was the door to the dark matter interface. No one on Earth realized this, but Loki knew very well what the reality was. At this time, he used the power of the cosmic cube to come to the place where the dark elves lived in the past, Wat Alheim. However, now this place has long been desolate, with flying sand and dust all over the sky, like yellow fog, and it is the same everywhere. There is no sign of green or life. Loki said solemnly, although the Dark Elves were beaten to genocide in the records, the body of the Dark Elf leader Malekith was not found at that time, so it is suspected that he ran away, but it is impossible to be sure. If I can find his location, then the next thing will be easy. Loki was holding the cosmic cube, trying to track the whereabouts of Malekith by looking for the traces left by the opening of the wormhole. And now, this is the 15th time that he has stood on the ground of Wat Alheim, trying to find traces of Malekith from the old site of the battle. How can it be that there is no trace of Malekith? Was he beaten so badly that there was no body left? Loki frowned and walked forward unwillingly, but he didn't know how long he had walked. Suddenly, Loki stopped and looked forward. It turned out that from the void in front, a trace of dark breath came. Loki raised his mouth and said, "Found it. Earth, wait for my counterattack." After he left, the lecture continued. Several people stood up to ask questions, and Lin Feng answered them one by one. At this time, another person stood up and asked, "Professor Lin, I have a question. Excuse me. You said that Sun Wukong's title is the Great Sage equaling heaven, so why did the Buddha Tathagata call him Fighting and Victory Buddha?" After this, many people became curious, but they didn't say anything, waiting quietly for Professor Lin's answer. In the live broadcast room, many netizens excitedly posted comments. "Fuck, someone finally asked this question. Yeah. Ha ha ha. I've always been curious about this." Lin Feng smiled and said, "I don't know about this question yet, but I think it must be something that Sun Wukong did later, and then he got this title." Everyone was disappointed when they heard the first sentence. But they heard the second sentence. Think about it carefully, it's possible. But what did Sun Wukong do? Everyone became curious again. This classmate pondered for a moment and also felt that it made sense. Then, he looked at Lin Feng and asked, "Then Sun Wukong will be called Daosheng Buddha later. Does it mean that he will become a Buddhist in the future?" This classmate just thought that there is a Buddha in the name of Tathagata Buddha. And now there is also a Buddha in Sun Wukong's title. When everyone heard this, they also realized this, and looked at Lin Feng curiously. Lin Feng nodded and said, yes, judging from this title, Sun Wukong will indeed become a Buddhist in the end. Everyone took a breath. This is a bit unexpected. How did he suddenly become a Buddhist? What did he do afterwards? Everyone became more and more curious and wanted to know the situation. Lin Feng smiled and said, however, for now, there is still a question. According to the information I have researched, people usually call Sun Wukong Dashing or Sun Dashing, and don't call him by his name. When these words came out, everyone was stunned. They didn't think there was anything wrong before. But now that Lin Feng said this, they began to feel that calling him by his name seemed to be a bit disrespectful to Sun Wukong. He has saved mankind twice in a row. Damn. Now that you mention it, it does feel a bit disrespectful to Sun Wukong. Yeah, I didn't feel that way before. In fact, I felt it a long time ago, but I didn't know what to call him. I thought about calling him Ancestor. After all, he was a person from ancient times, but it feels so awkward and weird. But now Professor Lin said to call him the Great Sage, I inexplicably feel that it seems very appropriate. Fuck, I have the same feeling. I feel that Sun Wukong should be called the Great Sage. Yes, yes, yes. I have the same feeling. The live broadcast room was filled with barrages of comments, all with such content. Lin Feng saw the reactions of the audience below, and a smile appeared on his face. He had discovered this situation before, and was thinking about explaining this matter in the lecture, so that everyone would know how to call Sun Wukong. Then, some people asked questions, but Lin Feng answered them one by one. Finally, no one stood up to ask questions. Lin Feng glanced around and said, does everyone have any questions? Seeing this, everyone thought that Professor Lin would announce that the lecture was over and see you next time. However, who would have thought that Professor Lin would say, if no one asks any more questions, then I will tell you something. It is a secret that I discovered during my research during this period of time. When these words came out, everyone in the room was shocked and curious, and there was an uproar. Chapter 60. The lecture ended and everyone was shocked. Everyone was very curious and excited. Fuck, is there a secret? Hahaha, I said that Professor Lin might have researched something else. Stop bragging, it's hindsight. How am I bragging? Look, Professor Lin studied Sun Wukong's story, so it's normal for him to research something else, based on his story, right? It's just like spider silk, it will always involve other things. Well, what you said makes sense. But didn't Professor Lin say that Sun Wukong should be called the Great Sage? Why are you still calling him Sun Wukong? You are so disrespectful. Hahaha. What secret does Professor Lin have? Yeah, tell me. There was an uproar. Some people whispered to each other and expressed their own opinions. Some fanatical and bold people asked Lin Feng loudly what the secret was. The netizens in the live broadcast room were also curious and excited. Even the principal Zhao Sangyang and others were aroused by curiosity and surprise. I haven't heard about it before. What secret did Professor Lin research? He hid it too deeply, didn't he? He just said it now? Lin Feng saw the reaction from the audience and smiled. This was the effect he wanted. When the system issued a random task to dig out Yang Jian on the moon, he came up with an idea. Now, he was ready to implement this idea. Lin Feng stretched out his hand and pressed down, signaling everyone to be quiet and not to get excited. After the audience quieted down, Lin Feng then said, this situation is likely to shock everyone, so please be mentally prepared. Everyone heard that Lin Feng was exaggerating. What is there to be unacceptable in this situation? Lin Feng waited for a few seconds, then smiled and said, based on my research during this period, I found that the ancient times of Sun Wukong, also known as the Great Sage, were called the prehistoric era. Prehistoric? Hearing this word, everyone was shocked. An inexplicable feeling appeared in their hearts. Lin Feng added, so, the Earth at that time was not called the Earth, but the prehistoric continent. The area of the prehistoric continent can be said to be boundless. Why do I say that? You can see it from the situation of the Great Sage. First of all, the first point is that the great sage has the magical power of the somersault cloud, right? One somersault is 108,000 miles. What is the concept of 108,000 miles? For example, one circle of the earth is 40,076 kilometers, so 108,000 miles is 54,000 kilometers. The great sage went around the earth once with a somersault, and there was an extra 14,000 kilometers, which is obviously wrong. Besides, the great sage fought against 100,000 heavenly soldiers and generals. It is impossible that they were circling the earth while fighting, right? This is too funny. Hiss. Everyone took a collective breath and fell into shock when they heard the words. Lin Feng added, the second point is also the most intuitive one. In that era, there were countless strong people, including the great sage and the Buddha. If the environment at that time was only as big as the earth, how could it accommodate them? It's like, you take a bucket and put some fish fry in it. But if you put a few big fish weighing 4 or 5 pounds in it, it will definitely not fit. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. The example just given made everyone believe it a little. At this moment, this more intuitive statement appeared, which made everyone completely believe it. Suddenly, everyone couldn't control their excitement and there was an uproar. Fuck, that makes sense. Yeah. If the earth was this big in the prehistoric times, then it would be impossible to accommodate Sun, the great sage and the others. That's right. The great sage can go around the earth with one somersault. Shocking. This is really shocking. Professor Lin is awesome. He actually discovered this. Incredible. Today's lecture reveals the appearance of the earth in ancient times, which will definitely shock the world and will cause countries around the world to study the earth. That's right, this kind of thing will definitely make a sensation around the world. Amazing. Professor Lin is really amazing. Fuck, it suddenly occurred to me that Professor Lin's appearance could not have brought us these situations on purpose, right? What are you thinking? Do you think Professor Lin is also a figure from the prehistoric times who has awakened? Hahaha, how is this possible? There was an uproar in the audience. Chen Haitian and others were also shocked. They didn't expect there would be such a situation. Lin Feng signaled everyone to be quiet again. After calming down, he smiled and said, based on these circumstances, I propose a bold hypothesis. The reason why the Great Desolate Continent became the current Earth is probably because of a great war. The Great Desolate Continent was broken into pieces, so it became the Earth. Then, some of the fragments dissipated, and some floated to various parts of the universe. For example, the moon, which is close to our Earth. It is very likely to be one of the fragments of the Great Desolate Continent. Everyone was collectively shocked and surprised. When Lin Feng saw the shocked expressions of the audience below the stage, he knew that his goal had been achieved. The next step was to throw out information about the moon, to arouse their curiosity and exploration of the moon. Lin Feng smiled and said, of course, these are all my assumptions, and cannot be verified. If we go to the moon and look for it, if we can find traces of the ancient war, it proves that my assumption is true. If we can't find it, it means that my assumption is wrong, and there are other reasons why the Great Desolate Continent became the current Earth. When everyone heard this, they nodded secretly and knew what it meant. But they were already curious and wanted to know if there were any traces of the ancient war on the moon. After all, if there is, it proves that what Professor Lin said is right. Exclamation mark. But everyone knows that with China's current technology, it is not difficult to land on the moon. The difficult part is to find traces of the ancient war on the moon. It should be difficult to explore the moon, right? Yes, if we just land on it and dig some soil, we can do it. But if we want to explore it in all aspects, we can't do it. I suddenly want to see the moon. Child, go to bed. There are all kinds of dreams. Hahaha. There were also barrages in the live broadcast room, all saying that they wanted to explore the moon. Lin Feng saw that the audience below the stage began to discuss the moon, and the corner of his mouth raised. He knew that everyone was interested, so that was it. The first step of the plan has been completed, and the next step is the second step. Then, Lin Feng signaled everyone to be quiet. Then, he said, well, that's it for today's lecture. Thank you all for your support. In addition, let me say one more thing. We have now entered an extraordinary era, and with the awakening of these ancient characters, the future will see earth-shaking changes. Maybe, after all the ancient characters have revived, the ancient times may very likely reappear, and we may be able to learn their skills by then. When these words came out, everyone in the room was shocked. Chapter 61. The lecture is over, and the principal decides on a manned moon landing plan. Everyone was in disbelief. After a few seconds, a heated discussion broke out. Professor Lin, is this true? Fuck, I remember that Tathagata Buddha also said the same thing. Yes. When did you say that? Why haven't I heard of it? Go away. If you haven't heard of it, it means you don't pay attention to this matter at all. Hahaha, if that's true, that's great. That's right. I'm so excited. The audience was in a heated discussion, and the voices were noisy. Lin Feng smiled and stretched out his hand, pressed it down, and signaled everyone to be quiet. After it was quiet, he said again, "Okay, everyone, thank you for participating in this lecture. See you next time." After that, Lin Feng waved goodbye and walked down the podium. There was warm applause from the audience, and the applause was thunderous. Everyone applauded excitedly, because the information Lin Feng brought this time was really shocking. The lecture ended with thunderous applause, but Lin Feng did not leave immediately, because he was surrounded by a group of professors and scholars. These excited old men pushed the reporters who wanted to interview Lin Feng to the back. "Professor Lin, how did you know that the earth was called Hanhuan continent in ancient times? Can you tell me more about the basis for the moon being a fragment of Hanhuan continent? Professor Lin, how sure are you that we can find traces of the ancient war on the moon? Professor Lin, do you know that Sundasham? If we can find traces of the ancient war on the moon, it means that what you said is right, and there has never been any sign of human life on the moon, so can we find other clues on it?" Well, your statement is possible, but the premise is that we must find traces of the ancient war and prove that the moon is a fragment of the Hanhuan continent. This group of highly educated old men said one sentence at a time, but they all used the honorific U, which means that Lin Feng is an amazing person in their hearts. And their ideas are also varied and varied. Although they are old, their imagination is still rich. In fact, from the perspective of all China, these people may be the pillars that make human society stronger. Lin Feng admires these people very much, but of course he won't explain many things very clearly at the moment. He pondered for a moment, smiled and interrupted their questions, saying, "I can't answer these things for the time being, because I don't have much evidence. However, if it can be confirmed that there are indeed traces of ancient wars on the moon, then it can prove that my speculation is true. The earth in ancient times was very huge. The moon is just a fragment. This is a very significant discovery." After hearing this, everyone did not speak again, but fell silent. They were thinking. After a while, when they came back to their senses, they found that Lin Feng had left this place. So, everyone's eyes turned to the principal Zhao Sangayang. They thought of one thing tacitly. Now it depends on what Zhao Sangayang says. You know, in a world-renowned university like Wielding University, Zhao Sangayang's official position is quite high, and he has considerable say in the academic world. Besides, many elite students come from Wielding University, and those elite students are currently working in various confidential departments in China. If they work in the same direction, it will be an extremely powerful force. Zhao Sangayang saw the eyes of his colleagues. He understood what they were thinking, but he hesitated. After all, this matter is too big, and with the current level of technology, it may be difficult to achieve. However, at this moment, a mobile phone rang. Zhao Sangayang took out his mobile phone. It was a call from the president of the next door Beijing University. He was slightly stunned. Can he call me at this time? Could it be? He guessed the other party's intention. Immediately, he smiled, made a decision, and said to many colleagues, "Notify and meet with the people from Beijing University in the conference room on the 5th floor later." Zhao Sangayang has made up his mind to apply to the country to build a rocket, land on the moon, explore the full view of the moon, and look for traces of the ancient war. This is a matter of great discovery significance. And if it is confirmed, maybe more clues about the prehistoric period, can be found on it. After that, he answered the phone. "Hello, I'm Zhao Sangayang." Zhao Sangayang walked while talking to the president of Jingcheng University. The professors and scholars around him were all excited. Half an hour later, there were nearly 100 people sitting in the large conference room. These people can be said to be the people with the most say in various fields in China. Software engineering, aerospace, information technology, history, and so on. These top people in China gathered in this classroom. Zhao Sangayang and the president of Jingcheng University sat in the middle of the conference table. Zhao Sangayang glanced and saw that no one came in again, so he said, "Are all the people here? Then let's start this meeting." After that, he sorted out the manuscripts on the table and said, "The purpose of this meeting is to target Lin Feng, Professor Lin's situation. We want to send people to the moon and explore whether there are traces of the ancient war on the moon." As soon as this was said, everyone understood it tacitly. Zhao Sangayang said again, "Moreover, this matter must be done as soon as possible to prevent other countries from exploring the moon before us." The other countries Zhao Sangayang mentioned refer to the United States. It can be said that it is the first time in history that everyone has gathered here. I think that with our combined strength, we will have the opportunity to accomplish the miracle of manned lunar landing. The faces of these professors and scholars were a little red, and they looked very excited, especially after hearing these words and hearing that they might be involved in this major event. Their hearts were even more full of blood. China has experienced too many hardships since the new century, and this time, they will regain glory and perhaps lead the world forward. So how can this not be exciting? Regarding this matter, the dean of our School of Aeronautics knows the latest developments in the space agency. After Zhao Sangayang finished speaking, the president of Jingcheng University said again. Then, he looked at an old man on his right and said, "Old Guo, tell me." Yes. This Professor Guo is the dean of the School of Aeronautics of Jingcheng University. He also works in the space agency and has made great contributions to China's aerospace industry. He pushed his glasses and said, "The space agency will launch a rocket to carry out the moon exploration plan soon. If we want to do it as soon as possible, then this is an opportunity." The president of Jingcheng University had already known about this situation, so he did not change his expression. However, the president of Huaqing University, Zhao Sangayang, and his group were all shocked. Soon, they reacted and showed excited smiles. "Isn't this just right? Yes. The time, the place, and the people are all right. Ha ha ha, this is too coincidental." No, rather than saying it's a coincidence, it's better to say that the national destiny has arrived. Yes, that's right. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Manned Lunar Landing Plan. Everyone present was very excited. Zhao Sangayang immediately said, "I will apply to the higher authorities for this matter, and I believe they will agree to this decision." Everyone thought so too. If traces of the ancient war were really found on the moon, then the significance would be too great. It is impossible for the higher authorities to disagree. The president of Jingcheng University thought for a while and said, "We have to discuss a policy now to ensure that this plan is foolproof." Yes. Professor Guo, the dean of the School of Aeronautics, nodded. It is not an easy task to achieve a comprehensive exploration of the moon. Then, everyone began to discuss, each expressed their opinions, and then sorted out and summarized their opinions, and finally analyzed and discussed. After 7 or 8 hours of discussion, it was not until late at night that the policy plan was determined. At this moment, it was pitch black outside, but the lights in the conference room were brightly lit, and everyone's face did not see fatigue, only excitement and excitement. Zhao Sangayang, the president of Huaqing University, held a formulated policy plan in his hand. With a smile on his face, he said, "That's all for now. I'll read it out. If there are any omissions or additions, please speak up." After that, Zhao Sangayang began to read out Point 1. This space program must carry out manned aviation. After all, data detection is not as good as on-site inspections. Many precision operations and on-the-spot contingency situations are not something that machines can do. Point 2. The speed of the space program must be fast. Relying on the lunar exploration rocket of the NASA, we have to make major modifications to the rocket within 20 days. Point 3. The search coverage area is very large, and the astronauts will be wearing spacesuits on the moon for a long time, so the spacesuits and the life support systems of the lunar module must be guaranteed. 4th. 5th. Point 27. 20 days later is the best launch time. We must launch within the original time scheduled by the NASA. Regardless of weather or orbital issues, 20 days later is the best time, and it cannot be delayed. There are a total of 27 key points, and many issues have been taken into consideration in detail. This is enough to prove how rich knowledge and strong execution the people present have. After Zhao Sangyang finished reading, he looked at everyone and asked, "Do you see anything missing, or want to add?" No one answered, because the situation just discussed was recorded. Very good. Seeing this, Zhao Sangyang smiled and said, "Everyone, this is an exploration of extraordinary significance. But we only have 20 days to prepare. But once we explore the traces of the ancient war, it will benefit all mankind. I will apply for this plan to my superiors now. Disband. Everyone go back and rest." After saying that, Zhao Sangyang stood up neatly and left in a hurry. But everyone present was excited. Because they are all participants in this plan. Zhao Sangyang did not wait until dawn, but visited his superiors at night to explain the situation. It can be seen how excited he is now, and how much he wants to implement it quickly. When the superiors learned of this idea, they also felt a little crazy. But after thinking about it, they agreed. After all, this is a matter of extraordinary significance. So, orders were issued from the capital overnight. All relevant departments began to operate. Moreover, space agencies in various places have also drawn technical personnel to Beijing to implement this plan. One night has passed. Under the operation of the state machinery, this plan has been in full swing. And on the internet, Lin Feng's lecture video has become popular all over the internet. There are complete versions and a lot of edited versions. Of course, the edited ones are all important parts. These videos have aroused heated discussions among netizens, because Lin Feng's lecture this time has a lot of explosive news. For example, Tathagata Buddha is the belief of Buddhism, and Buddhism should worship him, not those now. There are also people who became Buddhists after Sun Wukong. And the most explosive situation is that the earth was called the prehistoric continent in ancient times. And the prehistoric continent at that time was boundless. But I don't know what happened later. Maybe there was a war, which caused the prehistoric continent to be broken. Some of the fragments collapsed, and some flew to various parts of the universe. Among them, the moon may be one of the fragments. And this news has aroused heated discussions among netizens all over the internet. Fuck, is this news true or false? I'm not sure. Was the earth originally called Honghuang continent? And its area is boundless. Isn't this too shocking? Honghuang. Honghuang. Fuck, I feel like these two words are unusual. There's a special feeling. Yes, I feel so too. That's not important. What's important is, are there really traces of ancient battles on the moon? If Professor Lin's inference is correct, a great battle took place in Honghuang continent, which shattered Honghuang continent. Then it is really possible that there are traces of a great war left on the moon. Because there is no one on the moon, unlike on our Earth, where the stars move, the world changes, and humans multiply and thrive. The traces of the battle at that time had long been covered up or destroyed by human traces. Yes, what the above people said makes sense. Fuck. After listening to what you said, I want to go to the moon more and more. Me too. Hahaha, stop dreaming. We can go to the moon now, but we can only go there by machine. It's impossible to carry people. But even if machines can go up, it is impossible to fully explore the moon. Yeah. Netizens were discussing it, and they all wanted to go to the moon to have a look. Therefore, this situation quickly appeared on the hot search list of major platforms. #NETIZENS. When can we have manned moon landing? Hash hash is. What Professor Lin of Wukong University speculated really true? Hash hash HUAXIA aerospace. Work harder. Hash. And just when the whole network was discussing it, the Huaxia Space Agency released a Weibo, which instantly shocked the whole network again. The title of this Weibo is, "We have received everyone's prayers, and we are currently working hard to realize the idea of manned moon landing." The content is, yesterday was an extraordinary day. Professor Lin Feng of Wukong University explained a big thing. The Earth in ancient times was called the prehistoric continent. The area at that time was boundless, and later perhaps a big battle occurred, causing it to be broken. According to Professor Lin Feng's speculation, the moon is very likely one of the fragments, and he also speculated that there may be traces of the prehistoric period on the moon. Therefore, the country temporarily decided to create a manned moon landing, land on the moon, conduct a comprehensive exploration of the moon, and look for traces of the prehistoric period. We are currently stepping up research and development. If there is any new progress, we will inform you on the official website. Please do not believe any rumors. This Weibo post is very short, with only about 200 words in total. And the Chinese style is generally that the fewer words, the bigger the matter. So, as soon as this Weibo post came out, it shocked the entire network. WTF. Chapter 63 was hotly discussed on the entire network. Lin Feng successfully laid out his plan. Netizens were excited and couldn't believe it. This news was really too sudden. At once, they made comments one after another. Oh shit. This is explosive news. Is this true or false? Why do I find it hard to believe it? Or am I dreaming? This is officially released by NASA. How could it be false? That's right. Besides, you would never dream of such a thing. Haha, that makes sense. Oh shit, this is awesome. The country is so quick. Yeah, Professor Lin gave a lecture yesterday, and the country made a decision today. It has to be fast. This is something of great discovery significance. Is there a possibility that the country made a decision overnight? Anyway, this is a good thing. Where can I sign up for the manned lunar landing program? I want to be an astronaut and explore the moon myself. Yes, I wanted to. I even have to sign a waiver. I want to go down in history. Okay, forget it. Astronauts have to go through a lot of training to become one. You can't become one just because you want to. As soon as this Weibo post was posted, it became the #1 hot search in less than 10 minutes. Moreover, those news platforms also responded to the national call and rushed to report the incident. Even major schools began to broadcast the announcement. Under such promotion, in less than half a day, almost all people in the country knew about it. And this practice is also normal. After all, this is a matter of extraordinary significance, and it must be known to the people of the country. And under the propaganda of the Chinese government, the news also spread to the external network. The external network also caused an uproar and discussion. A netizen from France, "Oh my god, China is actually making such a big move." A netizen from Daying, "It's hard to understand. They are going to such great lengths to carry out a manned moon landing, just for a professor's speculation." A netizen from China, "Then don't understand. How would you know how meaningful it would be if we really found traces of the primitive times on the moon?" A netizen from China, "You are right." A netizen from Sakura, "I don't think you can find anything. The professor just speculated and didn't produce any substantial evidence. Besides, this kind of thing is too outrageous. So, you may find nothing in the end." A netizen from Sakura, "Hahaha, what are you trying to persuade them to do? Let them be stupid." A netizen from China, "You know shit. Several things Professor Lin said have come true, and what he said sometimes was said by people in ancient times, after they woke up. For example, Tathagata Buddha." A netizen from China, "Don't argue with them, they are a bunch of idiots. They don't know the value of Professor Lin in our China now." US netizens, "Hahaha, China also wants to carry out manned moon landing? Don't be funny, can you do it?" US netizens, "That's right, don't waste your efforts. So far, only the United States has achieved manned moon landing." Russian netizens, "I'm dying of laughter. Are you still talking about your manned moon landing in the United States? Isn't that fake? Everyone knows it, but you Americans don't know it yet? Chinese netizens, ha ha ha. China. Lin Feng sat under the pavilion. Today, the weather is clear and cloudless. Therefore, even in the daytime, the outline of the moon can be seen. Lin Feng smiled and looked at the moon. He had seen the situation on the internet and learned about the situation in the country from Zhao Sangayang. Everything is ready, and the only thing left is the layout on the moon. Lin Feng said with a smile. The random task issued by the system is to let Yang Jian be dug out on the moon. Therefore, everything he did before was to arouse China's curiosity about the moon. And now, he has done it. The country is preparing to develop manned lunar landing and conduct a comprehensive exploration of the moon, and his last move is to create traces of the prehistoric continent on the moon. System, open the mall, I want to buy a character. After the words fell, a virtual panel appeared with various characters' role cards on it. Search for Erlang Shen Yang Jian's role card. Lin Feng said. Yang Jian's role card popped up on the panel. Yang Jian was holding a 3-pointed double-edged sword, wearing a silver-white armor, and had 3 eyes on his face, but he didn't feel weird. On the contrary, he had a handsome face and deep and firm eyes. And below the role card was the required shock value. A total of 150,000 shock values. Buy Yang Jian's role card. Ding. Purchase successful. Congratulations to the owner for obtaining Yang Jian's first level role-playing card. Then, the virtual panel in front of him popped up personal attributes. Name, Lin Feng. Role card, Sun Wukong. Tathagata Buddha, Erlang Shen Yang Jian. Playing points, Sun Wukong 4078 points, Tathagata Buddha 889 points, Erlang Shen Yang Jian has no points. Note, playing points cannot be used universally. The playing points obtained by a character can only be used for that character. Shock value. 25,382 points. Note, shock value can be used to purchase goods in the store, including but not limited to mythological character cards. I had more than 170,000 before. After buying Yang Jian, there are more than 20,000 shock points left. I should think about making something and put it on the moon to serve as a trace of the ancient prehistoric continent. Lin Feng has now bought Yang Jian's character card, but he now needs to buy an immortal palace building or something, put it on the moon, and serve as a trace of the prehistoric continent. This can confirm his words, and it can also cause better shock. Lin Feng chooses the immortal palace page of the system mall. The last time the system was upgraded, there were not only character pages, but also other pages. In this immortal palace category, there are a large number of buildings from the prehistoric period, including not only caves such as Slanting Moon 3-Star Cave, Flower and Fruit Mountain, and Wazhang Temple, but also mountain gates such as Penglai 3 Immortal Islands, Bihao Palace, and Kunlun Mountain, which even contain mountain gate formations. Moreover, these immortal palaces all have the capabilities of the prehistoric period. For example, rare animals, exotic flowers and fruits, spiritual energy of heaven and earth, etc. Once these things are exchanged, I'm afraid it will be a scene that is so powerful that it is exaggerated. However, these things are too expensive, with hundreds of millions or tens of millions of shocking points. Lin Feng currently has only more than 20,000 shocking points, so he can only look at them and can't exchange them at all. I'm short of money. Shocking points are not enough. Lin Feng shook his head helplessly. It seems that he has to work harder and try to earn more shocking points. However, the good news is that he only needs to make a trace of the prehistoric continent on the moon, so he can buy a cheap immortal palace building, and there is no need to be so awesome. Lin Feng looked through the merchandise in the mall. From tens of millions, to millions and hundreds of thousands, and then to tens of thousands. Suddenly, his eyes lit up when he saw a product. This is good. Although it's cheap, it can have a good effect if used well. Lin Feng grinned and looked up at the outline of the moon. Next, I should find a time to start the construction. Chapter 64 Chen Haitian comes to Tony for help. This lunar exploration plan is scheduled to be held at the Jiaquan Satellite Launch Center. Since this time we are going to do a manned lunar landing, we need to make major changes to the previous rocket. First, the energy source needs to be changed. Because after the manned lunar landing, there must be enough fuel to carry people back to Earth smoothly. Second, the life support system in the space capsule needs to be strengthened to ensure that astronauts can live on it for a long time. Because the moon needs time to explore. Then, the spacesuit also needs to strengthen the life support system and install a power supply device. In a vacuum environment, wearing a bloated spacesuit, it is difficult to move. If there is no power system, astronauts will easily get tired, so it is impossible to explore the moon. Secondly, there are many big and small problems. The Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center has already drawn a large number of technicians and professors in the industry from all over the country to come to research. But there are still not enough people. Moreover, there are still many problems that cannot be solved. But time is tight. There are only 19 days. So we can only send these problems to various relevant departments, hoping to brainstorm and see if these problems can be solved. Ministry of State Security. Chen Haitian watched Lin Feng's lecture video with surprise and confusion on his face. He went to the lecture, but now watching the video again, he still feels surprised and incredible. How did he know these things? This is really intriguing. Chen Haitian frowned and muttered. He investigated Lin Feng's identity information and found nothing special. He was just a folk history enthusiast. But a folk history enthusiast could actually know these things. Chen Haitian pondered for a moment and decided to find a time to visit Lin Feng in person. Ding ling ling. Ding ling ling. At this moment, a rapid phone ring rang. Chen Haitian reached out and took the microphone, put it to his ear, and said, "Hello, this is Chen Haitian. Director Chen, a document will be sent to you soon. It's about the manned moon landing plan. Tony Stark needs help with it. Go and talk to him." A voice came from the microphone. Manned moon landing plan? Chen Haitian was stunned. Immediately, he realized that this was the group of scientists at the space agency who encountered a problem and came to Tony Stark for help. Chen Haitian replied, "Yes, I know. Yeah." The other party hung up the phone. Chen Haitian put the phone back, looking thoughtful. He didn't know what the problem would be. But since Stark was asked to solve it, it must be a big problem. However, Chen Haitian agreed to Tony joining the Chinese supernatural department in the hope that his smart mind could contribute to China. Otherwise, why would he agree to let him join China? Chen Haitian waited for a while. Knock, knock, knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. "Come in." As soon as the words fell, the door was pushed open and a subordinate walked in. He was holding a folder in his hand and said anxiously, "Report. The urgent document sent from above requires us to execute it immediately." "I know." Chen Haitian stood up, took the document and left. Laboratory. Tony is studying a new reactor. The previous severe palladium poisoning left a deep impression on him. However, last time was tight and there was no choice but to continue using that reactor. Now there is time, and we can try to make a new element reactor. Of course, Tony actually wanted to study the power that Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buddha had, and then see if he could master it. However, he couldn't even see them now, so there was no way. Stark. At this time, a voice came from behind. Tony turned around and saw Chen Haitian hurried over with a folder in his hand. Tony asked, "Director Chen, what can I do for you? I need your assistance with something." "What is it?" "Huaxia is preparing to carry out manned spaceflight to land on the moon for all-round exploration. Do you know about this?" "Yes. This matter has been widely circulated on the internet, and Tony naturally knew about it. And he also thought in his heart that he wanted to go to the moon to see if there were really traces of the prehistoric continent." Suddenly, Tony realized what Chen Haitian was talking about. "We have encountered some difficulties in the issue of manned lunar landing rockets. Take a look and see what ideas and thoughts you have." After that, Chen Haitian handed the folder to Tony. Sure enough, it's just as I expected, Tony thought. Immediately, he took off his rubber gloves and said, "Put the file over there first. I don't like to accept things handed to me by others." Chen Haitian didn't understand what was going on, but he didn't think much about it and put the file on the table next to him. Tony washed his hands and came over, picked up the folder, took out the file and started reading. But the more he read, the deeper his brows knitted. After a while, He finished reading, put away the file, and said to Chen Haitian, "Director Chen, you are now facing the problem of energy supply, right?" "Yes." Chen Haitian also read the file. It said that there was a problem with energy supply, that is, they didn't know what energy to use. He said, "Do you have any good ideas?" Tony knew that, if he joined the Chinese supernatural department, he had to play his role, otherwise they would not keep him. So, he said, at present conventional energy methods, such as high purity fuel, can provide enough power for rockets to reach the moon. But this kind of fuel is too heavy, and is also a burden. What we are currently building is a manned rocket, which needs to be equipped with a lot of things. Therefore, it is very necessary to reduce the weight. In addition, conventional energy is not enough to provide daily operations of the space capsule, including the life support system and kinetic energy device of the spacesuit. And it is impossible to provide regular supplies on the moon. Regular supplies consume too much energy, and rockets must be launched every 3 or 2 days. If the sun is used to provide energy, it will not work, because the landing point cannot always have the sun. Moreover, the temperature of the moon can reach -120 to 180 degrees, which can freeze people into ice sculptures, so the energy must not be cut off. Chen Haitian heard this analysis, and felt that it made sense. However, the scientists must have thought of these problems, otherwise they would not have worried about what energy to use. He asked Tony, "Then what good energy methods do you have?" "Yes." Tony nodded, then pointed to the reactor on his chest and said, "Use this to provide energy." Chen Haitian's eyes lit up instantly, looking at the reactor on Tony's chest. "Yes, why didn't I think of this? This is a good thing." However, before Chen Haitian could be happy for 3 seconds, Tony's words were like cold water poured down. "However, this reactor is not feasible at present. If too much energy is released, the palladium element will be uncontrolled and released along with the energy. This will radiate the human body and cause palladium poisoning. Therefore, I need to develop a new reactor." Chapter 65 The way energy is provided. Palladium poisoning. Chen Haitian couldn't help but think of Tony he saw that day. His face was pale, the blood vessels under his neck were all black, he was extremely weak, and he looked like he was going to die at any time. After that, Tony told Chen Haitian that he was severely poisoned by palladium. Chen Haitian thought about it and felt that such a reactor was indeed not suitable for use as an energy supply method. He asked again, "How long will it take you to develop a new reactor?" "We plan to launch a lunar exploration rocket in 20 days. Tony pondered for a moment and said, 10 days. "If 10 days don't work, I will think of other energy supply methods." "Okay." Chen Haitian nodded. "I'll leave this to you." After that, he turned and left. But at this time, Tony's voice sounded behind him again. "By the way, Director Chen, I invited a friend to join the extraordinary organization with me. He is a very powerful physicist." "Okay." Chen Haitian turned around and said, "But I have to examine his qualifications. Do you understand what I mean?" "Of course." Tony smiled. The United States. New York was basically destroyed. The Statue of Liberty was completely torn down in ruins. The explosion of the power source of an aerospace carrier is no joke. "Nick." Pierce angrily said to Nick, "What is going on? Didn't you say that your Avengers plan would work?" Nick had several band-aids on his face and his arm was broken and bandaged. He said, "Who would have thought that the Mandarin would use the cosmic cube to open a space tunnel and allow alien civilizations to invade the Earth? That's not the point." Pierce angrily scolded. "The point is that you made a mistake in judgment and didn't know what the Mandarin was going to do by stealing the cosmic cube, which indirectly caused the aerospace carrier to crash and destroyed a New York City. Do you know how big the loss is?" Nick didn't say anything. He didn't expect that he had already run away in advance, but he was still targeted by Sun Wukong and misunderstood, and he destroyed the aerospace carrier. Seeing Nick silent, Pierce was furious. But there was no other place to vent except Nick. He couldn't go to Sun Wukong to settle the score, right? Isn't that asking for trouble? The more Pierce thought about it, the angrier he got. This feeling of having to swallow his anger after breaking his teeth is really frustrating. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, "Is there still no news about Tony Stark?" "No," Nick answered this time. and I asked Miss Pepper, the CEO of Stark Group, and she also said that there is no whereabouts of Stark, and she is also sending people to look for him. Pierce pondered for a moment and said, could he have died in Hong Kong City? I don't think so. Nick frowned with his only remaining eye and said, at that time, Tathagata Buddha took action and resurrected all the dead. If Stark died at that time, he must have been resurrected. Pierce heard it and felt that it made sense. He said again, in that case, we must find him. You also know what Stark Industries means to the United States, and he also has the Iron Man suit and the technology of the small reactor in his hands. These are extremely precious things. I understand. Nick said. In fact, he has been asking people to find the whereabouts of Tony Stark. However, there was no news. Pierce paused and said, I don't know who Lin Feng is in China. He actually made a big fuss about a lecture and launched a manned moon landing, explored the entire moon, and searched for traces of the prehistoric continent. We investigated the identity of Lin Feng and found that he was a folk history enthusiast. Nothing special. Nick replied. Isn't he just a folklore? Pierce laughed when he heard this and said, are all the scholars in China dead, or did the appearance of Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buddha cause them to blindly believe in these illusory things? The moon is a fragment of the prehistoric continent, and there will be traces of the prehistoric continent on it. There is no real basis for this, and it is all based on personal speculation. How can China believe it? It's really funny. Don't go to great lengths to finally land a man on the moon, but when you get to the moon and explore it thoroughly, there is nothing. Pierce said this with a basis. At present, the technological level of the United States cannot fully observe the situation on the moon, but it can also observe some. Judging from these circumstances, the moon could not possibly be a fragment of the prehistoric continent. Nick saw Pierce smile and relaxed a little. He had seen the abilities of Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buddha before, and began to believe these illusory things. But the moon being a fragment of the prehistoric continent was too ridiculous, and there was no actual basis, so he didn't believe it. However, he was happy to see that China had worked in vain. That must be very interesting. Ding ling ling. Ding ling ling. At this moment, a cell phone rang, as if foreshadowing something urgent. Pierce looked at Nick. Nick quickly picked up the phone on the table, answered it, and said, hello, this is Nick Fury. Director, something bad has happened. Robert Bruce Banner escaped from prison. Hiss. Nick took a breath, and then, his expression became extremely serious and said, have you found his trace? No, I don't know where he escaped to. Nick's face was ugly. If he escaped, if we know the trace, we can still catch him back. But it's difficult to know where he is. He didn't think much about it and said, okay, I'll come over right away. After that, he hung up the phone. Pierce noticed the change in Nick's face, and he frowned and asked, what happened? Banner escaped from prison. Nick said, Banner? Pierce's eyes were puzzled, but suddenly, he remembered who it was, and his face suddenly changed. Is it the Hulk? Yes. Pierce's scalp immediately went numb. He knew Banner's identity. He was a super genius, a physicist. But he also had another identity, which was extremely dangerous, that is, the Hulk. Hulk was extremely violent and destructive. If he escaped into the city, I don't know how much damage he would cause. Quick, catch him as soon as possible. Pierce ordered hurriedly. Yes, Nick responded. China, Beijing. At the gate of the newly established supernatural department, a foreigner rode a shared yellow car over. Then, he stopped at the door. The foreigner looked up at the department in front of him and murmured, this is probably what Miss Pepper is talking about. He was Dr. Banner. With the help of Pepper, Dr. Banner fled the United States and came to the capital of China. And all this was instructed by Tony. On the way here, Dr. Banner was always worried that he would be stimulated to become the Hulk and then destroyed out of control. But fortunately, everything was fine along the way, allowing him to arrive at his destination safely. Dr. Banner parked the shared bicycle and walked forward. But he was scolded by the guard agent. Stop, important departments are not allowed to enter. Please leave here quickly. Dr. Banner thought that, since Tony Stark needed his help and asked him to come here, he must have his intention. So he said truthfully, I'm here to find Tony Stark. Tony Stark. The agent frowned. Tony Stark and Thor joining the supernatural administration is a very confidential matter, and only very few people know about it. The agent looked Dr. Banner up and down, and just to be on the safe side, he said, "Isn't he in the United States? How could he be in China? Let's go." Chapter 66 Excited Tony. Banner was confused when he heard this. But he had fled to China from the United States and had never met Tony, so there was no way to prove that Tony had invited him here. And there was another problem. The United States seemed to be unclear about Tony Stark's situation and didn't know where he was. Some people thought he died in the alien invasion of Xiangjiang City. Banner didn't think about it anymore. Since the other party said so, he should leave here first. It would be bad if he was stimulated here and turned into Hulk and hurt others. Anyway, Tony Stark would go to find him if he didn't wait for him. Thinking of this, Banner said okay. Then he turned and left. But at this moment, an English voice came from behind him. "Are you looking for Stark?" Banner heard this and turned around and saw a middle-aged man dressed in a suit and trousers, dressed like an agent. Although he didn't know who the other party was, he must know something if he asked this question. So, Banner nodded and said in English, "Well, I'll come to him." Chen Haitian just came out from Tony and saw someone coming to Tony. But at this time, he saw Banner's appearance, took a breath and was surprised. It's him, Dr. Banner. As the leader of the Ministry of National Security, Chen Haitian naturally knew some secrets of the United States. This included Dr. Banner's situation. Dr. Banner, a superphysicist, was exposed to gamma rays, which gave birth to another side, the Hulk. The Hulk is powerful and violent, and has great destructive power. Thinking of this, Chen Haitian realized another situation. Could it be that the person Stark is talking about is him? Chen Haitian thought about it, and felt that it was very possible. Banner saw the surprised reaction of the visitor and realized that the other party might know his identity, otherwise he would not have this reaction. So, he became a little nervous and worried that he would be arrested, so he quickly stated his purpose. "Stark invited me here. He said he encountered a problem." Chen Haitian thought it should be the problem of the new element reactor. He said, "In that case, come with me." "Okay." Back in the laboratory, Chen Haitian said to Tony's busy back, "Stark, someone is here to see you." Tony heard the voice, turned around, and saw Banner standing next to Chen Haitian. His eyes lit up, and he quickly took off his gloves, walked over, stretched out his hand and smiled. "Hello, Dr. Banner." "Hello." Banner stretched out his hand and shook hands with Tony. However, he seemed a little restrained and inferior. This is also normal. After all, he has the Hulk in his body, and everyone doesn't like the Hulk, so he feels inferior because of this. "Relax a little." Tony smiled. This was his first time meeting Banner, but he knew about Banner a long time ago. Banner also forced a smile. Then, Tony got to the point and said to Chen Haitian, "Director Chen, Dr. Banner is the one I asked to help. Can he join the supernatural administration?" "Yes." "Do we need to examine his qualifications?" "No." Chen Haitian smiled and said, "We Chinese have an old saying, don't doubt people when you employ them, and don't employ people if you doubt them." Since it is Dr. Banner, there is no possibility of him being a spy sent by the United States. After all, the United States has always kept a dangerous person like Hulk in prison, and it is impossible to release him. So, in this situation, he should have escaped directly from the US prison after being invited by Stark. "Yeah." Tony smiled and nodded. He knew what Chen Haitian meant by the examination before. Because they are Americans, they are somewhat worried. But Dr. Banner's words are absolutely reassuring. Because he cannot be a spy sent by the United States. Banner was a little confused, but he could understand what it meant. Chen Haitian said, "Okay, you guys are busy." After that, he was about to leave, but he was stopped by Banner again. You just let me stay here? Don't you prepare a separate room for me? I'm afraid Hulk will suddenly come out." Banner said, looking a little pitiful and inferior. It can be seen that he has been psychologically traumatized by Hulk. But Chen Haitian heard this, smiled and said, "No, just try not to let him show up." Banner was shocked. He didn't expect to be treated like this in China. He felt as if he was treated equally, and he was not on guard against him, because there was a Hulk in his body. Chen Haitian didn't say much and turned away. In fact, he was not afraid that Banner would lose control at all, because China had the protection of the Great Sage. Banner still stared at Chen Haitian's back in a daze. At this time, Tony patted his shoulder and said, "Don't look at it stupidly. What's so good about a man? Take a look at this. Do you have any ideas?" Tony brought a stack of drawings. Banner heard this and came back to his senses. He took the drawings and looked at them, but after looking at a few pictures, he was a little surprised and said, "Did you do all these?" "Yeah. Incredible, Stark. You are really talented." Banner praised. Tony smiled and said, "Do you think that new element can be discovered in this way?" "It's hard to say." Banner shook his head and then said seriously, "But according to this idea, increasing the collision of particles should be possible." "Okay, let's try it," Tony said excitedly. Chen Haitian came out of the Supernatural Management Bureau and took a car to where Lin Feng lived. He had planned to visit Lin Feng before, but suddenly his superiors sent an urgent document and asked him to ask Tony for help. Now that he was free, he decided to visit Lin Feng. Came to the garden where Lin Feng lived. Chen Haitian said, "Professor Lin, is Professor Lin here?" After shouting a few times, he heard a response from inside. "I'm here." After a while, the door opened. Lin Feng looked at the familiar people outside with some surprise. He had met Chen Haitian a few times in total, but he had seen him when he was playing a role, not in real life. So, in order not to be surprised, he asked, "Who are you?" Actually, Lin Feng had planned to do the moon layout tonight, but someone came to visit, so he postponed it. "Oh, I'm from the Ministry of State Security. My name is Chen Haitian." Chen Haitian smiled and said, "I was shocked after listening to Professor Lin's lecture that day, so I thought of visiting you and chatting with you by the way." "Oh, so, then come in." Lin Feng turned sideways and made way. Lin Feng poured a cup of tea for Chen Haitian, and Chen Haitian's eyes were always on Lin Feng. Before, Lin Feng was at the lecture, and he couldn't look at him well. Now he can look at him up close, but no matter how he looks at him, he thinks Lin Feng is ordinary, except that he has a better temperament and looks a little more handsome. There is nothing special about him. But this is exactly what is strange. How did he know these clues from ancient times? Chen Haitian thought about this, and after Lin Feng sat down opposite him, he said, "Professor Lin, I have always had a question for you." "Oh, what's the question?" "We have investigated your information and have a certain understanding of you, so based on your past experiences alone, it is difficult for me to understand why you know so many clues from ancient times and can even infer that the moon is a fragment of the ancient continent." Chapter 67. What if I really am a character from the prehistoric continent? Lin Feng heard the words and knew the purpose of his visit. He smiled and said, "Why do you think that is?" Chen Haitian said, "Some people on the internet speculate that you may also be a figure from the prehistoric continent, and now you have awakened." Ha ha ha. Lin Feng laughed. "Are the speculations on the internet so weird?" "Yes." Lin Feng paused and smiled. "What if I really am?" Chen Haitian was stunned for a moment. Then, he shook his head and said, "Professor Lin is joking. How is this possible? The figures who awakened in the prehistoric continent, such as Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buddha, all came and went without a trace. After Sun Wukong flew away, they investigated the direction he flew to, but Sun Wukong disappeared during the flight and did not fly into the human city at all. So it can be seen from this that they do not live among humans. Moreover, as powerful and mysterious as they are, and figures from the prehistoric continent, it is impossible for them to live with humans. Therefore, it can be inferred that Professor Lin is not a figure from the prehistoric continent." Chen Haitian thought of this. However, he also saw that Lin Feng did not want to answer this question. Although Chen Haitian was curious, he did not ask more questions. After all, he came to visit, not to interrogate, and if he dared to interrogate Lin Feng, he would probably be drowned by the saliva on the internet, and even his position would be lost. He talked about another thing. "Professor Lin, what you said in the lecture before was that the moon is one of the fragments of the prehistoric continent, and there are very likely traces of the prehistoric continent on it. Now the country is stepping up the development of manned rockets, and there are still 18 days to launch a landing on the moon for comprehensive exploration. What do you think of this? Seeing that Chen Haitian changed the subject, although he didn't know what he was thinking, Lin Feng didn't think about it much. He said, according to my research, there is a high possibility that there are traces of the prehistoric continent on the moon, but this is ultimately my speculation. The real situation can only be known by exploring the moon. The country's response was somewhat beyond my expectations. I didn't expect the country to make this decision so quickly. However, this also shows that the country attaches great importance to this matter. Yeah. Chen Haitian nodded in agreement. As a member of the Ministry of State Security, he naturally knew the importance the country attached to this matter. Lin Feng smiled again and said, of course, this is also a good thing. If my speculation can be confirmed to be correct, then when other characters in the prehistoric continent awaken in the future, we will understand their era and have corresponding measures. This is 100 benefits and no harm. Chen Haitian nodded. He naturally understood this truth. He added, however, there are currently many problems with the development of manned rockets. The biggest problem is the way of providing energy. Now it has been handed over to Tony Stark in the United States to solve this problem. He plans to use reactors as a way of providing energy. But he said that the reactors he has at present have a big problem. The large amount of energy released will cause the palladium element to spread rapidly and cause radiation to the human body. Therefore, he is stepping up the development of new element reactors and using them on manned rockets as energy supply. However, he said that this is not easy. Chen Haitian did not say that Tony has now joined the Supernatural Management Bureau. After all, this is confidential. Hearing this, Lin Feng smiled and said, now that you mention it, I have an idea here. I wonder if it will work. What idea? Chen Haitian asked curiously, not understanding what Lin Feng meant. Lin Feng said, the radioactivity of palladium is unstable, so we don't need to consider this element anymore. We can first build a microscopic field to observe the fission process of neutrons. When it keeps fissioning until a certain level, new changes may occur. At this time, using high voltage electric pulse technology, we can find a way to collide them, and perhaps a new element will be produced. This new element may be suitable. Chen Haitian looked shocked. As soon as he heard the first sentence, he knew what Lin Feng was talking about. But isn't Professor Lin a history expert? How come he also understands technology? Moreover, he gave suggestions to the problems Tony Stark encountered. Chen Haitian was shocked and couldn't believe it. But he didn't understand technology, so he didn't know if what Lin Feng said made sense. He thought about it and thought to himself, could it be that he is trying to get me to leave here in this way so that I can confirm it and not delve into his identity for the time being? However, Chen Haitian still clearly distinguished the primary and secondary relationships at this time. Although he wanted to know the true situation of Lin Feng, it was obvious that the situation of manned spaceflight this time was more important. If Tony Stark could solve the problem of energy supply, then the problem of manned rocket would be solved by half. With this in mind, he didn't think much about it, stood up, and said to Lin Feng, sorry, Professor Lin, I have to make a phone call. Okay, go ahead. Seeing Chen Haitian's shocked and panicked look, Lin Feng smiled, still looking calm. He knew that Chen Haitian was going to call Tony Stark to tell him about this, and his original intention was to let Tony build a new reactor as soon as possible as a way to provide energy for manned rockets. In this way, his plan can also be guaranteed to be foolproof and quickly put on the table. Chen Haitian hurriedly got up and walked out of the room. When they reached the fake hill, it was already dark. Chen Haitian took out his cell phone and called Tony Stark. Failed. Tony frowned and looked at the scrapped crystal. He and Banner tried the previous design. It failed and the crystal was directly scrapped. Banner also looked at the scrapped crystal and was at a loss. It was not an easy task to develop a safe, stable, and energy-rich reactor. After all, this can be said to be a technological revolution. As long as it is developed, many ideas and concepts can be tried later. Banner looked at Tony and asked, Tony, how many days do we have left? In the process of trying this plan, Tony explained to him the current situation. So, He knew why Tony was anxious to develop a new reactor. 9 days. If the reactor doesn't work, then we have to consider other ways of providing energy. Only 9 days? Banner thought it was too difficult. The time was too short, and it was impossible. Tony didn't say anything. Ding ling ling. Ding ling ling. But at this moment, a rapid cell phone ring rang. Tony picked up the phone from the table and saw that it was Chen Haitian calling. Tony was a little confused. Why did he call him at this time? He answered the call and said, "Hello, Director Chen, what's the matter? I'm doing research here. Stark, listen to me first. I'm with Lin Feng, Professor Lin." Chen Haitian's voice came from the phone. "Professor Lin?" "Yes, Professor Lin just put forward a point of view on the problem you encountered." Chen Haitian said quickly. "What did you say?" Tony was shocked. "Professor Lin put forward a point of view?" Chapter 68 Lin Feng starts construction on the moon. Tony frowned. He thought this was outrageous. Isn't Professor Lin a history professor? How could he understand science and technology? He thought about it and asked tentatively, "Director Chen, you are not kidding me, are you? I don't have time to joke now." He would rather believe that Chen Haitian was joking with him than to believe what Chen Haitian said. Lin Feng gave his opinion on the difficulties he encountered. "Why should I joke with you?" Chen Haitian said, "Listen to me first, and then you can figure it out yourself. I don't know anything about this." Chen Haitian said quickly. Professor Lin said that the radioactivity of palladium is unstable, so we don't need to consider this element anymore. We can first build a microscopic field to observe the fission process of neutrons. When it keeps fissioning until a certain level, new changes may occur. At this time, using the technology of high voltage electric pulses, we can find a way to collide them, and perhaps a new element will be produced. This new element may be suitable. Tony was shocked. He was a genius scientist, so when these words came out, he instantly felt like he had opened up something. He pondered for a moment, and this idea turned out to be better than his previous one, and more feasible. He was instantly shocked. This is really proposed by Professor Lin. He is too amazing, isn't he? Exclamation mark. Banner, who was next to him, saw Tony's face change so much, and asked curiously, "Tony, what did Director Chen say?" Banner just glanced at the caller ID, but he didn't hear what Chen Haitian said clearly. Hearing this, Tony hurriedly turned on the hands-free, and then said, "Director Chen, please say it again." Chen Haitian didn't understand, but didn't refuse, but repeated what Lin Feng had just said. The radioactivity of palladium is unstable, so we don't need to consider this element anymore. We can build a microscopic field first. Hiss. After Chen Haitian finished speaking, Banner took a breath. He was also a genius, so when Chen Haitian said this, he also felt that he had been enlightened. At this moment, he carefully tasted it and felt that this method was indeed feasible, and it was very feasible. "Director Chen, where did you get this idea?" Banner asked hurriedly in surprise. He knew that this could not be Chen Haitian's idea, he must have heard it from someone else. Banner thought to himself, "I never thought that Director Chen actually knew such a person." Chen Haitian heard the question, but he didn't expect Banner to be there. However, he didn't think much about it. He said, "It's Professor Lin Feng. He heard about the problems you encountered and proposed an idea." Professor Lin. Banner was shocked. He heard Tony talk about it, so he knew this person. But isn't this person a history professor? How can he have such a deep understanding of science and technology? It's incredible. Isn't this too amazing? Banner was shocked. At this time, Chen Haitian said, "Stark, I don't understand this. What do you think of this idea?" Hearing this, Tony came back to his senses and said truthfully, "This idea is very feasible, but I can't guarantee that it will succeed at the moment. I need to do some experiments." After that, he looked at Banner. Banner nodded at him and approved of his idea. "Okay, then you guys, do the experiment as soon as possible. I'll be back soon." Chen Haitian couldn't wait to hear this. This is a big deal. If the problem of energy supply can be solved, then the manned rocket project will be more than half completed. Yeah. After hanging up the phone, Chen Haitian turned his head and looked into the house. The lights were still on in the room. Chen Haitian was still shocked. He didn't expect that Lin Feng could actually put forward this point of view, and it would be so highly recognized by Tony Stark. You know, Tony Stark was stumped by this question. His identity is getting more and more mysterious. Chen Haitian frowned. He knew so much about Sun Wukong and the others, and he could point out the difficulties Tony encountered and give solutions. But then Chen Haitian didn't think much about it. Now the manned rocket is more important. He didn't go into the house again, but stood there and thanked the house. Professor Lin, thank you for your proposal. We are currently conducting experiments on your proposal. I will go back and see it first and visit you another day. Okay, go. A calm laugh came from the house. Chen Haitian paused for a moment, not knowing what he was thinking. Then, he left in a hurry. After a while, Lin Feng walked out of the room. The scientific and technological concept that Lin Feng told Chen Haitian was just a research idea that Tony found later. And the original intention of doing this, as mentioned before, was to complete the manned lunar landing plan as soon as possible. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the moon and the night sky. Today is the third day of the lunar calendar. At this moment, the moon is a new moon, like a sickle, not even half of the full moon. Next, it's time to lay out on the moon. Lin Feng smiled. Then, he chose to play the role of Tathagata Buddha. A golden light flashed, and he turned into the appearance of Tathagata Buddha, sitting cross-legged on the lotus platform. Then, with a swish, his figure disappeared. When he appeared, he was already on the back of the moon. The back of the moon is desolate, cold, without a trace of air, and full of potholes. If the Earth is regarded as a living planet, then the moon is like a planet that has been dead for a long time, without any vitality. If it were an ordinary person, in such a situation, he would be frozen into an ice sculpture and die in an instant. However, Lin Feng is now playing the role of Tathagata Buddha, so he does not feel uncomfortable at all. Lin Feng looked around and finally felt that this place is more suitable for the moment. Amitabha, let's choose to create traces of the prehistoric continent here. Lin Feng chanted a Buddhist name. Then, he summoned the system and started construction. On the other side, Tony and Banda began to work without sleep, preparing for the experiment according to Lin Feng's ideas. After a day and a night of attempts, they successfully discovered a new element. The energy output of this new element is stronger than that of palladium, and it is more stable than it, so it is very suitable to use it as a new reactor. It's done. Tony was very excited. After Banda was excited for a while, he quickly controlled his emotions, fearing that Hulk would suddenly come out. The two hurriedly told Chen Haitian the news. Chen Haitian was shocked when he heard about it. Successful? Incredible. The ideas provided by Professor Lin actually solved this problem. Chen Haitian couldn't believe it. Immediately, he didn't think much about it and had to report this good news quickly. He hurriedly said, "You guys quickly sort out the test data and then write a detailed report. I'll come and get it." Quanjiu Satellite Launch Center. Since it is a manned lunar landing, it is also necessary to conduct a comprehensive exploration of the moon, so the rocket needs to be generally reformed. There are many problems and troubles, big and small. However, these troubles are gradually being solved, and there is only one problem that has never been solved. That is the problem of energy supply. Scientists drawn from all over the country are arguing over this issue. The specific situation is that I have my ideas, you have your ideas, and he has his plan, so it has not been determined until now, and there have even been several cases where they quarreled and fought on the spot. Therefore, it can be seen how complicated and difficult the situation is. But at this time, a document specially airlifted from a certain department and escorted by soldiers was delivered to the laboratory, and all scientists were shocked. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 successfully completed. This document is about the energy supply method and the manufacturing process of the spacesuit. After reading it, all the scientists were shocked to the point of numbness in their scalps, and they felt like something was opened up. Hiss. Incredible, it can be used in this way. Yes. This energy supply method is perfect. It has a small load, and the energy output is large and stable enough to support long-term exploration on the moon. Well, and this spacesuit is also well designed, but it feels a bit like Tony Stark's Iron Man suit. Hahaha. Anyway, to come up with such a design concept, it must be a talent. Quickly look at who signed it. As soon as the words fell, all the scientists reacted and started to search. Finally, the signature was found on the last page. But after seeing this signature, everyone was stunned. The signature was Lin Feng. Who is Lin Feng? I have never heard of a scientist with this name. Instead, the professor of the history department of King University is called Lin Feng. Everyone was puzzled, and then they found a line of small words under the signature. The core of this design was provided by Professor Lin Feng from the history department of King University. Therefore, the first signature right of this design is given to Professor Lin Feng. Hiss. Everyone took a breath and was shocked. Professor Lin Feng. It's really Professor Lin Feng. Incredible. This is really incredible. Isn't Professor Lin Feng a professor of history? How come he has such a deep knowledge of energy dynamics? Yes. He is too amazing. Is this a true genius? Everyone was shocked and couldn't believe it. After a long while, a respected old professor came back to his senses. He pushed his reading glasses and broke the silence, saying, "Okay, now is not the time to be surprised. Time is tight. Let's vote now. Raise your hands if you think this energy design plan should be implemented." After speaking, everyone raised their hands at the same time, and no one hesitated. This shows that this design plan has won the high recognition of everyone. The old professor glanced at it, then raised his hand and said, "Okay, unanimously passed, then we will work according to this design plan." Time was tight, and the scientists took action one after another. As the most difficult energy supply problem was solved, and all scientists and technicians worked day and night to rush the project, the construction period of the manned lunar rocket was shortened again and again. Finally, it took only 10 days to complete the project. Moreover, all simulation data were normal, without any problems. All scientists and technicians were excited and cheered. Hahaha, it's a success. Finished in 10 days. 10 days ahead of the expected 20 days. Yes. We did it. Manned lunar rocket. Hahaha. Many people danced with excitement, and some people burst into tears with excitement. Because this can be said to be a revolution in the history of Chinese rockets. And they are both participants and witnesses. One piece of good news after another of completion was sent out from the Quanjiu Satellite Launch Center, King University. The professors and scholars of our school, together with the professors and scholars of Jingcheng University, gathered together for a meeting. Today's meeting was held suddenly, so no one knew what the meeting was going to talk about. At this time, the two presidents of King University and Jingcheng University walked in. Both of them were smiling. It seemed that they had encountered something great. Everyone present was curious. The two presidents sat down. Zhao Sangayang, the president of King University, didn't say much and said directly, "Everyone, there is good news from the Quanjiu Satellite Launch Center." Good news? Everyone was stunned when they heard it. Immediately, they were also happy and asked, "What good news is the president?" Yes, is it that the energy supply problem has been solved? If so, then this is indeed good news. Well, as long as this problem is solved, other problems are all minor problems. Everyone talked about it, discussing what the good news was. When Zhao Sangayang heard the discussion, he smiled and raised his hand to signal everyone to be quiet. After everyone quieted down, he smiled and said, "The Quanjiu Satellite Launch Center said that the manned lunar rocket has been successfully completed. It is 10 days faster than the previously planned 20 days. When this was said, everyone was shocked. The manned lunar rocket was completed 10 days ahead of schedule? How did this happen? Exclamation mark. Impossible. Everyone had an expression of disbelief on their faces. After several seconds, they asked one after another, "Principal, what's going on? Why can it be completed 10 days ahead of schedule? Yes, this is incredible. Hahaha, great. So we can carry out manned lunar exploration as scheduled." That's right. This is a big deal. But I'm still very curious. Didn't you say before that there are great difficulties in providing energy for manned rockets? How can it be completed 10 days ahead of schedule now? Everyone was very excited and kept talking. Because the successful completion of the manned lunar rocket means that we can land on the moon and explore. However, some people are curious about the progress of this project. Why does it feel like it has suddenly taken off? Seeing everyone's reactions, Zhao Sangyang also smiled and said, it was impossible to be so fast, but the biggest problem of the manned rocket was solved by Lin Feng, Professor Lin, so the progress can be so fast. Wow. As soon as this was said, there was an uproar. Everyone was surprised. It was solved by Lin Feng, Professor Lin, and Professor Lin actually understands technology. Everyone was stunned. It was unbelievable. Someone asked, President, Professor Lin also knows this? Yes, Zhao Sangyang said excitedly. However, at this time, someone else said, then why didn't you notify Professor Lin to come? For such a meeting, I don't think we should disturb him. It's not an important meeting. After the launch is successful, let Professor Lin come out. That will be more meaningful. Zhao Sangyang smiled. He called Lin Feng before coming and told him about this. Everyone understood that this was just an announcement meeting and Professor Lin did not need to come out. However, they suddenly thought that if this was the case, then this manned lunar exploration project could be said to be driven by Professor Lin. He first proposed that there might be traces of the prehistoric continent on the moon and then solved the problem of manned rockets. In this case, as long as Professor Lin is willing to show up, he can almost take 90% of the honors. Hiss. When everyone thought of this, they took a breath and were surprised. At this time, Chen Haitian said, today's meeting is held to announce this period and to ask everyone to vote. I think that manned lunar landing and lunar exploration is a major discovery. The result of this discovery is of great significance to the Earth. Therefore, I decided to broadcast the exploration of the moon live. What do you think? Chapter 70, Live broadcast of manned moon landing? Everyone was shocked when they heard this, and then they all agreed. Okay, I think this proposal is good. Yes, this is a major event related to the Earth and all mankind, and it should be broadcast live. Haha, Principal Zhao, this proposal is good. But there is a problem. If we send people to the moon to explore the Earth and find no traces of the prehistoric continent, what should we do? This is a later story. If we don't find it, there is no way. Yes, besides, we have at least tried it, and let the world see our Chinese execution ability and determination to explore unknown things. Well, that makes sense. There was a lot of discussion. When Zhao Sangyang heard that there were disagreements, he raised his hand to signal everyone to be quiet. Then, he said, let's not argue anymore. Let's vote by raising our hands. The minority obeys the majority. Those who agree to broadcast the whole process raise their hands. After the words fell, most people raised their hands. Only a few people, but after thinking about it, they also raised their hands to express their agreement. Zhao Sangyang was a little surprised, but he didn't think much about it. Besides, he agreed to broadcast the whole process live. He smiled and said, okay, it's passed unanimously. I agree to broadcast the whole process live. I will apply to my superiors now. In less than 30 minutes, Zhao Sangyang came back in a hurry with an excited smile on his face. He said that his superiors had agreed to broadcast the live broadcast and would issue a notice to let major news media and online platforms report the matter. Everyone cheered excitedly. The state issued an order, and major news media began to compete to report it. The homepages of online platforms, such as Weibo, Penguin News, Taoxiao, etc., all turned red. The homepage is the news of the incident, and you can see it by clicking on it. For a time, this matter caused a sensation on the entire internet. After netizens learned about the situation, they were all excited. Hahaha, my country is awesome. They have built a manned lunar rocket so quickly. Wow, it's so awesome. They are about to start the lunar exploration. Hahaha, this speed is amazing. Live broadcast of the whole process? Is it true? Am I dreaming? The person above, is there a possibility that you can't even dream of such a thing? Hahaha. Where can I sign up? I want to sign up to be an astronaut and explore the moon myself. I want to go. Get out of my way. I want to be an astronaut. Then what? Will your grandparents give you the sizzling jelly you love to eat? Ha ha ha. On the internet, excitement, joy, and excitement can't be stopped at all. This is understandable. After all, this is something that inspires the morale of the Chinese people. First of all, the manned rocket landing on the moon has been completed, and the research and development of lunar exploration has been completed. This is a revolution in rocket technology. Secondly, we can go to the moon to find out if there are any traces of the primitive continent. Either of these two things is exciting enough. And not just on the internet. Most schools, except for senior high school students, have started to organize activities to watch the live broadcast on the day of the moon landing. The purpose is to let students witness this exciting moment with their own eyes. And China made such a big fuss that the news was also spread to the internet, causing a great sensation on the internet. Oh my god, China actually built a manned moon rocket. Is this true or false? What's the matter? Manned moon rockets were developed in the United States as early as the last century. Puchy, I'm dying of laughter. Yours is fake, right? Ha ha ha. Is China really going to explore the moon? I really hope to find traces of the prehistoric continent. And the United States, the CIA. Unlike the situation on the internet, the CIA is already busy. Because China has built a manned moon rocket and can also conduct a comprehensive exploration of the moon, which makes them feel oppressed and threatened. Damn it, how come China has suddenly developed such a rocket? Why are they so anxious? Have they already obtained evidence to prove that there are traces of the great continent on the moon? Impossible? No matter what, this won't work. One step slow, every step slow. If China really finds traces of the great continent on the moon and obtains some information, then we will be left behind by them. Yes. Quick, contact NASN and ask them to quickly build a manned lunar rocket. We also want to explore the moon. If they can't build it, then ask them to give a reasonable explanation. The CIA is very busy. After all, this is a major event that can be related to the United States. Shield. Pop. Pierce slapped a piece of news that China has developed a manned lunar rocket and will soon land on the moon to find traces of the great continent on Nick's desk and said with a grim look, "Take a look." "What is it?" Nick picked it up and took a look. Oh, it turned out to be this matter. He put it down again. He had known about this long ago. After all, he was not a spy for nothing. Pierce frowned and wondered. China's reaction is a little abnormal. It seems that they are very persistent about this matter. Could it be that they have grasped the clue that there are traces of the primitive continent on the moon? Pierce couldn't help thinking this way. But Nick smiled when he heard it and said, "Don't be impatient. Take a look at this thing first." As he said that, he took out a mail bag, which was full and heavy. "What is this?" "Photos of the moon," Nick said. "I asked NASA for it. They have observed the moon for so many years and have taken countless photos. This is just a part of it, but they didn't find any strange traces on the moon. It's all desolate and lonely. So, China's efforts this time are just in vain." Pierce's eyes lit up when he heard it. He quickly took out a handful of photos of the moon and flipped through them. As a result, he could only see craters and nothing else. And everywhere was filled with a dead silver gray and desolate atmosphere. Every photo is like this. Great. As long as there are no traces of the great desolation continent on the moon, it's fine. Let's see how busy they are. Pierce said excitedly. Of course, if they were to go to the moon to explore, they would naturally hope to find traces of the great desolation continent. Because, in this way, they would be the first to get in touch with the situation of the great desolation continent. Maybe they could get something useful. Yeah. Nick also nodded and smiled, as if he had foreseen that China would find nothing after a comprehensive exploration. At the same time, Loki's side. Loki used the power of the cosmic cube to wander in the space cracks. Finally, he saw a huge interstellar battleship in front of him. However, this interstellar battleship had no lights, as if it had fallen into silence. Chapter 71 Countdown. This interstellar battleship is completely black and has no special shape. It looks like a huge long sword standing upright. It is full of a sense of killing, as if it was specially built for war. Hiss. Loki took a breath and was shocked by the shape of this battleship. Found it, the Dark Elf battleship. After being shocked, Loki became excited. It appears here, which means that my speculation is correct. In the battle that year, the leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith, was not killed. Instead, he drove the battleship and used the power of space to escape, and then chose to remain silent in order to save his life. Loki was excited. Immediately, he used the power of the cosmic magic cube, and with a flash of blue light, he entered the interior of the star battleship. I saw that the surroundings were pitch black, without any sound, and a dead silence. Almost every one of these dark elves has very powerful power. However, I don't know how it will compare with Sun Wukong. The scene of Lin Feng turning into a fiery red streamer, like a fire meteor, crashing into the interstellar battleship of the Chitauri army, is deeply ingrained in Loki's heart. However, the Dark Elves are a race that can compete with Asgard in its heyday, and their strength is evident. But no matter what, I will not choose China to invade this time. I have to change my tactics. Loki thought as he walked forward in the dark. After a while, Loki walked into the control room. He looked at the empty control room, carefully explored the strange shaped instrument panels, and then found the button to start the battleship and pressed it. Buzz! A strange engine sound rang out throughout the spacecraft, and many lights lit up in the originally dim corridor. And just behind Loki, a hiss sound suddenly sounded. It seemed that some gas was leaking out. Dap dap dap. Then, heavy footsteps sounded on the floor of the control room. Loki turned around and saw a tall creature. He was the leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith. Loki said with a smile, "King of the Dark Elves, Malekith, welcome to Wake Up." "Who are you?" Malekith asked. His voice was vicissitudes and heavy. He was nearly 2 meters tall, and his skin was blue. He looked dark, evil, and violent. "It doesn't matter who I am." Loki smiled and said what he had already thought of. "What's important is that you have been sleeping for 5,000 years. Now the 9 realms are about to be connected. You should wake up and return to the 9 realms." Malekith looked at Loki calmly without expressing his opinion. Loki smiled again and said, "Don't you want to find the ether?" Malekith's expression finally moved. He was silent for a few seconds and asked, "Do you know where the ether is?" "Yes." Malekith asked, "What do you want?" Malekith knew that there was no gain without early action. The man in front of him must have some purpose. "I want to rule the planet where the ether is." "Okay," Malekith said lightly without thinking. This means that he recognizes his own strength. And in the entire universe, there is nothing he can't do, as long as he wants. "Then you can tell me now, which planet is the ether on?" Although Loki didn't know where the ether was, he knew very well what his goal was. So, he showed his cunning characteristics and smiled naturally. "On the Earth." "Earth?" Malekith asked in a puzzled tone. Loki realized that the Earth was not a common name in the 9 realms. He changed his words and said, "That is, the atrium." "Middle atrium." Malekith groaned. "The middle atrium is the hub of the 9 realms. If the ether will appear anywhere, then the middle atrium seems to be the most likely place." Thinking of this, Malekith looked up at Loki. He was wondering if the man in front of him really knew, or if he actually had another purpose, and was just leading him to the Earth. But after watching for a long time, he didn't see anything unusual on Loki's face. The other party still looked sincere. Malekith retracted his gaze. The ether was extremely important to him. As long as there were clues, he would go and find it no matter what. Thinking of this, he said, "In that case, let's set off for the middle atrium." After Malekith finished speaking, he was about to control the star battleship. But Loki hurriedly stopped him and said, "The Earth now has very powerful power. I think we should make some preparations." "Powerful power?" Malekith asked puzzledly. "Are they using the ether now?" "That's not the case," Loki said. "In that case, there is nothing to worry about. The power of the Dark Elves is beyond your understanding. In the atrium, my race can be destroyed with a single blow." Malekith said lightly, as if he did not take the Earth seriously at all. He controlled the star battleship, broke through the space barrier, and headed towards the Earth at high speed. At this time, there was still half a day before the launch of China's manned lunar rocket. Earth China. The Kwangju Satellite Launch Center is conducting the final inspection of the manned lunar rocket. It can be seen that this manned rocket is quite different from previous rockets. It is assembled from an ordinary rocket and a device similar to an airplane. The two are on the left and the right. However, this aircraft-like device has very short wings, which are far inferior to the wings of an airplane. However, it looks full of interstellar and technological sense. A beautiful reporter was facing the camera, introducing excitedly, "Hello, audience friends, this is the live broadcast room of the manned lunar landing column. Now we can see that behind me is the launch pad, where hundreds of technical workers and scientists are conducting the final inspection of the rocket. As everyone knows, this manned spaceflight is the first manned lunar landing in my country. This can be said to be a technological revolution. Moreover, according to what Professor Lin Feng mentioned, the importance of this lunar landing is beyond doubt. It is now 10:11 in the morning, and the rocket launch time is set at 11:50. And you can also see that the weather here is also very good today. The sun is high, the sky is clear, and there is not even a white cloud in the sky. Does this also indicate that our lunar exploration plan this time will be smooth sailing?" The female reporter stood in the northwest wind with excitement and high voice, her heart full of expectations for the next historic scene. And in the live broadcast room, a large number of netizens have already poured in. Netizens were also excited when they saw this scene. Haha, it's finally going to start. Fuck, this rocket looks very different from the usual rockets. Nonsense, can this be compared with the usual rockets? This is a manned lunar rocket. Haha, launch it quickly. Don't wait any longer. Don't worry upstairs. This is a big deal. We need to check it carefully. Yeah, this thing that flies to the moon and lands. A screw error may lead to a complete failure. Am I the only one who noticed that the reporter is very beautiful? With so many people here, I secretly eat a mouthful of shit. No one should notice, right? And it's not just China. Other countries are also paying close attention to this matter. After all, this is a big deal, and it can also be said to be a big deal for the Earth. As long as you live on the Earth, there is no one who doesn't pay attention to it. Chapter 72. The United States is also preparing to launch a rocket, and South Korea is preparing materials for applying for World Heritage status. Foreign netizens also discussed it. My god, China really did it. Are there really any traces of the ancient continent on the moon? That's just a guess. It has not been confirmed at all. Yes. Then why is China so persistent? It has developed a manned rocket in a short period of time and wants to land on the moon. Haha, who knows, but in my opinion, China will definitely work in vain this time, because if there are traces of the ancient continent on the moon, we in the United States would have discovered it long ago. And it's not just foreign people who are paying attention to this matter. Foreign senior officials are also paying attention. However, they are in high positions and look at the problem differently. Great Iron country, what is China going to do? Just based on a professor's speculation, it has made such a big fuss. Is the full exploration of the moon just a cover, and the real idea is actually to show off its muscles? The United States, hurry up and prepare. Once China really finds traces of the primitive continent on the moon, we will immediately launch a manned rocket to land on the moon and conduct excavations. We must not let them get ahead of us. The United States, the environment on the moon is harsh, with radiation, temperature, difficulty in movement and other factors. If you want to conduct a full exploration, the requirements for spacesuits are too high. China's spacesuits can never do this. Sakura country, humph, don't let the garbage rockets assembled in such a short time explode as soon as they are ignited and launched. Otherwise it will be a joke to the whole world. The Korean country, hurry up and prepare the materials. Once China finds something on the moon, we will immediately apply to the United Nations for World Heritage, saying that the traces of the primitive continent were left by our ancestors. Under the attention of the public, time passed quickly. On the screen, people can see that the scientists and technicians who were originally conducting the final inspection on the launch pad are evacuating the area around the launch pad. They left the launch pad in a vehicle. It didn't take long for the launch pad to be deserted. But then, the beautiful reporter walked to the camera again, with an excited smile. Dear audience friends, there are less than 10 minutes left before the rocket ignites and launches. And we just suddenly learned that the biggest problem encountered in the development of this manned lunar rocket was solved by Professor Lin Feng of King University. It is reported that the scientists were busy with this problem that day, but Professor Lin's words inspired them to find a new way to solve the problem smoothly. The beautiful reporter became more and more excited, with curved eyebrows and a bright smile. So, if it weren't for Professor Lin, the development of the manned lunar rocket would not have been so smooth, and it would not have been completed so quickly. Professor Lin is really amazing. Of course, I'm also very grateful to those scientists and technicians for their hard work day and night. You are all the pillars of the country. As soon as these words came out, all the audience were shocked. Lin, Professor Lin solved it? Fuck. Is this true? Yeah. Did I hear it right? It must be true. This is a live broadcast. How could he say something nonsense? Haha, Professor Lin is awesome. He can even solve scientific and technological problems. Fuck, is this what knowledge means to change destiny? Haha, Professor Lin is awesome. So awesome. Professor Lin is incredible. He knows so much knowledge at this age. Wow, I'm the same age as Professor Lin, but I'm still asking my parents for living expenses. Netizens were excited and posted comments one after another. The comments were all about how awesome Professor Lin was, and so on. The comments were very lively and dense for a while. A moment later, the countdown to the rocket launch was almost over. The beautiful reporter appeared in the camera again, holding a mobile phone and excitedly said, "Dear viewers, the countdown for the launch of Star Exploration number 1 is about to begin. Let's count down together now." The beautiful reporter held the microphone in one hand and looked at the mobile phone in her hand and said, 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. After the countdown, the beautiful reporter turned her head to look at the upright Star Exploration number 1 in the distance. Only a hiss sound was heard. Because the distance was very far, the sound was not loud, and then flames were seen coming out of the bottom of Star Exploration number 1. Star Exploration number 1 slowly rose into the air with a rumbling sound. Seeing this, the beautiful reporter was very excited and turned her head to the camera and said, "The launch was successful. Now we can see that Star Exploration number 1 is gradually rising." The audience in the live broadcast room were also nervous and shocked when they saw this scene, worried that there would be problems with the launch. But seeing that the rocket was rising steadily, the tension in their hearts gradually relaxed. Then, they sent out barrages one after another. Hahaha, it's lifted off. Awesome. Fuck, Mach loops. Look, it's a Mach loop. Hahaha, fly to the moon. Ah. I want to get in it, and then go to the moon, to explore the traces of the primitive continent. Kid, study hard, and you can do what you like in the future. The comments were endless. The Star Exploration number 1 had already flown to a certain height, and started the first stage of separation. The bottom of the rocket fell off, and the second stage began to exert force. The second stage ejected a huge flame. Mach loops appeared, and the speed was faster, flying to a higher altitude. At this time, the huge device similar to an airplane did not need to be started, and the flight to the moon was entirely carried out by the rocket device. The beautiful reporter was also very excited when she saw this scene. She said, "This scene is destined to be recorded in the history of China. We will tell future generations what kind of feat we have done. This is our first step in exploring the starry sky. Our journey will be to the Sea of Stars." In King University, President Zhao Songgyang and Professor Fang Minimum were both smiling when they heard this. However, they knew in their hearts that they could have such an experience now, thanks to the gift of Professor Lin Feng. The new reactor carried by Star Exploration number 1 and the traces of the prehistoric continent on the moon. If there was no Professor Lin, then humans would not have conducted a comprehensive exploration of the moon at present. Today's action may affect the future of all mankind. A few seconds later, Zhao Songgyang smiled. Yes. Professor Fang Minimum agreed with this statement. Then, he sighed. "It's a pity that I can't watch such a scene with Professor Lin." Yeah. Zhao Songgyang nodded. They originally planned to watch the rocket launch with Lin Feng. but Lin Feng had called them before and said that he would be away for a while to see the famous mountains and rivers to see if he could find any traces of the prehistoric continent. If he couldn't find any, it would be good to find records of other people from the prehistoric period. Chapter 73 Star Exploration Number 1 has lost contact. However, Professor Lin must be watching the live broadcast now. Zhao Sangayang said again. Yes. Fang Minimum nodded. Now the whole country, even the whole world, is paying attention to this matter. Moreover, this matter was promoted by Professor Lin. If anyone wants to find traces of the great continent on the moon, it must be Professor Lin. So no matter where he is, he must be watching the live broadcast. They don't know that Lin Feng is now in the famous mountain and river of the moon. Lin Feng has already made arrangements, and then he will wait for the Star Exploration Number 1 to land on the moon. He also saw and heard the excitement on the earth. A smile appeared on his face. It will take 2.5 days for the Star Exploration Number 1 to land on the moon, and it will probably land on the moon at 2:15 PM on the third day, 2 days later. Because, if there are traces of the great continent on the moon, it must be on the back of the moon. If it is on the front, the side facing the earth, it would have been observed by the country long ago. And it will take a certain amount of time for the Star Exploration Number 1 to go around the back of the moon and land on the moon along the predetermined trajectory. The audience has been paying attention to the live broadcast. Time has passed quietly. Soon, 2 days were up. Star Exploration Number 1 had entered the back of the moon and was within the predetermined orbit, about to land at the landing point. This was also the most dangerous and most likely critical moment for uncontrollable factors to occur. Quanjiu Satellite Launch Command Center. Dozens of technicians were busy. The computer kept making beeping sounds, and the data on it was changing, recording the situation of Star Exploration Number 1 at all times. The orbit is normal, there is no deviation. The surrounding area of the moon is normal, no meteorites or obstacles were found. All data of Star Exploration Number 1 is normal. The vital signs of the 4 astronauts are normal. Each group of technicians reported the relevant data. Chief Engineer Zheng Mingyang listened to the data report and looked at the big screen with a nervous expression. On the big screen, it was a real-time picture taken by Star Exploration Number 1. In the picture, the moon was just in front, as if it was within reach, but it happened to be the most dangerous at this time. Although hundreds of simulation experiments have been done and the landing was successful, no one can be sure what will happen in practice. This is like Scrooge's cat. But after hearing that all the data was normal, Zheng Mingyang relaxed a little. He said to the microphone, "Zhao Heyo, how do you feel?" After he finished speaking, after a second or two, the astronaut's voice came out. "Everything is fine." "That's good." Zheng Mingyang said again. "It's 2:03 PM now. There are still 12 minutes before Star Exploration Number 1 will land on the ground. Be prepared." After another second or two, the astronaut's voice came. "Got it." And the audience in the live broadcast room also saw this scene. Seeing that it was about to land on the back of the moon, they were all excited. "Haha, is it finally going to land? It's not easy to wait. Fuck, we can already see the moon. Haha, can't we explore it soon? Hurry up. I can't wait. I can't imagine how excited I would be if I really found traces of the prehistoric continent on the moon. Haha." The barrage was very lively. The audience was looking forward to exploring the moon. At the same time, in the United States, SHIELD, Nick was watching the live broadcast. China's Star Exploration Number 1 is about to land on the back of the moon. This is a time when accidents are most likely to happen. At this time, Pierce hurried in and asked, "Nick, how is the situation?" "There are about 10 minutes to land on the moon." "So soon?" Pierce was a little surprised and came to the computer to look at the screen. After watching for a few seconds, he still didn't understand. "You say, China is not clear about the situation on the moon, or do they have some evidence? Otherwise, why are they so persistent in exploring the moon?" Pierce still couldn't figure it out. Nick shook his head and didn't answer this. What he learned from NASA before was that there was no trace of the primitive continent on the moon. He was also convinced of this at first. However, now that he saw that China was about to land on the moon, he was inexplicably shaken in his heart, thinking that China might really find something on the back of the moon. After all, what the machine took was far less accurate and real than what humans explored in person. Pierce added, however, I just heard from NASA that they're ready. If China successfully lands on the moon and really finds traces of the prehistoric continent, they will immediately launch a manned rocket to the moon and conduct exploration and excavation operations. In short, they cannot lag behind China. Well, that's the best. Nick nodded. In this way, there is no need for him to worry. 10 minutes passed quickly, and Star Exploration number 1 was preparing to land. Command Center, can you hear me? This is Zoheo, the astronaut of Star Exploration number 1. Star Exploration number 1 has entered the landing orbit and requested to land. Agree to land. Pay attention to safety. Chief Engineer Zheng Mingyang replied. Received. Landing. Boom boom boom. A huge roar came out. On the big screen, only half of the rocket part of Star Exploration number 1 was left, but it still spewed out high intensity flames. The large device similar to an airplane on the right was still intact. The astronauts were sitting in this position. Boom boom boom. Star Exploration number 1 is constantly adjusting the angle. The technicians are also constantly reporting the situation. The landing orbit is deviated. Please continue to adjust. The landing orbit is deviated. Please continue to adjust. Everyone in the command center was heartbroken when they heard this. Fortunately, good news came when the fifth sound came. Entering the landing orbit, the calculation data is normal, please continue to maintain it. Star Exploration number 1 was adjusted to a butt down position and slowly landed. Seeing this situation, the command center was collectively stunned. Immediately, they cheered. Great. Success. As long as we land according to this situation, there will be no problem. We can land on the moon soon and explore the moon. Hahaha, we are all witnesses of the times. The command center was excited. Hearing the excited voice, Zheng Mingyang also smiled and relaxed a lot. Now that we have entered the landing orbit, there should be no more accidents. He said to the microphone again, Zoheo, how do you feel? Everything is fine. After a second or two, Zoheo's voice came out. Zheng Mingyang was about to say that's good when he heard this. But suddenly, he heard a strong electromagnetic sound. Zzzz. Zheng Mingyang's face changed when he heard this sound. Then, with a bang, the image of Star Exploration number 1 on the big screen disappeared, and the screen went black. Exclamation mark. When this phenomenon happened, Zheng Mingyang's scalp instantly went numb. Chapter 74 Emergency. Everyone was stunned. The next second, everyone was in a panic and became noisy. What on earth is going on? Yeah. What happened? Quickly check the various conditions of Star Exploration number 1 and try to restore the live broadcast function. We need to know what happened. Checking. Trying to reconnect the screen. Report. Star Exploration number 1 has detected a strong lunar magnetic storm and has been trapped in the magnetic storm. What? Lunar magnetic storm? How could this happen? Damn it. This kind of cosmic magnetic storm is unpredictable and uncontrollable. Quick, try to remotely control Star Exploration number 1 from the surface to get rid of the lunar magnetic storm. Yes. The technicians were busy. The sound of communication and the alarm of equipment were endless. The audience in the live broadcast room were all stunned when they saw this scene. They didn't expect such a thing to happen. They immediately asked in the live broadcast room, fuck, what's going on? Yeah. How could this happen suddenly? I don't know. But no one can predict such things. Will the landing fail? Find a way quickly. We are already at the entrance of the moon. What a pity it would be if the landing fails. Yeah. Find a way quickly. Damn, is the moon so dangerous? Isn't the above nonsense? There are many dangerous natural places on the earth, not to mention the moon, which doesn't even have an atmosphere. Huaking University. President Zhao Sangayang and Professor Fang Minimum saw this situation and their faces changed. They couldn't believe it. At the same time, senior officials from other countries also saw this situation. Sakura country, haha, isn't this a waste of effort? You still want to land on the back of the moon? Isn't this asking for difficulty in landing? Big-eyeing country, I'm scared to death. Watching China try to land on the moon with a man is more painful than me not being able to land on the moon, but fortunately they can't land either. The United States, overestimating their own capabilities, all in vain. Korean country, this. China can't do this. I have prepared the materials for the World Heritage application. The United States, SHIELD. Pierce was stunned when he saw this scene. He didn't expect this to happen. But then, he laughed triumphantly. Haha, China still can't do it. It seems that we in the United States still have to land on the moon and explore. Pierce believes that under this situation, China's star exploration number 1 is completely hopeless and will definitely crash on the moon. Nick looked at the dark-lit broadcast room without any sound and said nothing. Quanjiu Satellite Command Center. Chief Engineer Zheng Mingai looked anxious and said to the microphone, "This is the Surface Quanjiu Satellite Command Center, Starry Sky Exploration number 1, can you hear me? Starry Sky Exploration number 1. Zheng Mingai shouted several times in a row. However, Starry Sky Exploration number 1 did not reply. Zheng Mingai looked anxious and worried. But at this moment, Starry Sky Exploration number 1 sent intermittent replies with electromagnetic interference. Command. Zizi. Center. We. Zizi. Have completely lost control. Zizi. But only a few words came, and they were completely unable to be heard clearly due to electromagnetic interference. But through these few words, we can also know the other party's situation. Zheng Mingyang's face changed drastically, and he couldn't believe this. And the others were also stunned. But suddenly, the technician responsible for reconnecting the shooting picture said, "Report, the picture has been reconnected." After the words fell, I saw that the big screen lit up, and the picture appeared. However, this picture was tilted, and the moon was below, which meant that Starry Sky Exploration number 1 was falling towards the moon at an inclined angle. If this continues, the moment it touches the moon, Star Exploration number 1 will surely disintegrate. Damn it. Zheng Mingyang asked hurriedly, "Can we remotely control the Exploration number 1 from the surface to adjust the angle?" Report. It's impossible. Affected by the lunar magnetic storm, most of the functions of Star Exploration number 1 are disturbed. The technician replied anxiously. He was trying, but every time a red mark popped up on the console screen, indicating that the control failed. What did you say? Zheng Mingyang looked stunned. The audience in the live broadcast room were all stunned when they saw this scene. The next second, they reacted and sent out barrages in a hurry. Fuck. What should we do? Isn't this the end? Damn it. How could something like this happen suddenly? It's over. It's over. The lunar exploration plan is going to fail. I can't accept this. Let's keep thinking of a solution. Are we going to give up? There are still 4 astronauts on the Star Exploration number 1. What can we do in this situation? Fuck, I don't dare to watch it anymore. I don't dare to watch it either. For a while, the barrage was full of content that people didn't dare to watch, because if they continued to watch, the Star Exploration number 1 would definitely crash into the moon. Most of the foreign senior officials were gloating, thinking that China had worked in vain. For a speculation, they spent a lot of effort to build a manned lunar rocket, but when it was about to land on the moon, this happened suddenly. We don't even know whether there are traces of the prehistoric continent on the moon. It's all in vain. However, does this also mean that China's national destiny is going to be in trouble? Otherwise, how could it be so coincidental that such a thing happened? Many people had such speculations in their hearts. Report. Star Exploration number 1 is still 300 meters away from the lunar surface. Report. Star Exploration number 1 is still 200 meters away from the lunar surface. Report. Star Exploration number 1 is still 100 meters away from the lunar surface. Hearing this data, everyone couldn't bear to watch it anymore, and all closed their eyes, waiting for the arrival of the last moment in great pain. This time, the manned lunar exploration plan failed. Zheng Mingyang also closed his eyes, unable to bear to watch it anymore. He was also in great pain. On the one hand, the plan that attracted worldwide attention failed, and on the other hand, the 4 astronauts in Star Exploration number 1. They sacrificed their precious lives to explore the traces of the prehistoric continent. However, after waiting for a few seconds, there was no alarm from the system. Everyone was surprised. What was going on? A distance of 100 meters should be very fast, but why hasn't the alarm sounded yet? Some people were puzzled and raised their heads. However, when they saw the scene on the big screen, they collectively took a breath, their eyes widened, and they couldn't believe their eyes. What's going on? I don't know. Miracle. This is simply a miracle. Excited noises rang out. Chief Engineer Zheng Mingyang was puzzled. He raised his head and looked at the big screen, but he immediately widened his eyes and looked extremely shocked. On the screen, a soft white light supported the star exploration number 1, preventing it from falling down. Chapter 75 Global Sensation. What on earth is going on? Zheng Mingyang was so shocked that his brain was completely shut down. This scene was really too sudden and too unreasonable. When the audience in the live broadcast room saw this scene, they all gasped and looked shocked. After several seconds, they came to their senses and excitedly sent out comments. Oh shit. What's going on? Incredible. This is too incredible. Yeah, it's absolutely shocking. How did this white light appear? Did any one of you see it? Describe it to me. I couldn't bear to look down, so I closed my eyes and didn't see it. Me too. Someone come and explain it. I saw it. The star exploration number 1 was about to hit the moon, but suddenly a beam of white light rushed up from below and held it up at a very fast speed. Haha, it suddenly occurred to me that this situation is very similar to the methods used by Sun Wukong and Buddha Tathagata. Does this mean that the moon is really a fragment of the prehistoric continent and that there are traces of the prehistoric continent on it? Oh shit, the analysis above makes a lot of sense. Haha, it makes me suddenly realize, when I think about it this way, there is a high possibility that there are traces of the prehistoric continent. Don't jump to conclusions about this kind of thing. Don't forget that there are aliens in the universe. The last time in Hong Kong City was still vivid in our minds. The audience was very excited. From this, it can be seen that there is indeed something on the moon, otherwise this situation would not occur. However, whether it is related to the prehistoric continent remains to be studied. After all, this is a very rigorous matter that may be related to the future of all mankind, so we can't draw a conclusion so early. In fact, they didn't know that this white light was shot by Lin Feng to save the Starry Sky Exploration number 1. Otherwise, the Starry Sky Exploration number 1 would have directly crashed into the surface of the moon. King University. Zhao Sangyang and Fang Minimum looked at this scene in disbelief. The two thought that the Starry Sky Exploration number 1 was going to crash into the moon, but they didn't expect such a situation to happen suddenly. Hiss. Zhao Sangyang came back to his senses, took a breath, and said in surprise, "What's going on?" "I don't know." Fang Minimum asked in confusion. But suddenly, he thought of something, and said in surprise, "However, if this situation occurs, it means that there is definitely something on the moon, otherwise it won't be like this. I think it is very likely related to the prehistoric continent." Zhao Sangyang was shocked when he heard this, and felt that it made sense. Fang Minimum added, "However, it has not been discovered yet, so maybe it is something else." "Well, you are right." Zhao Sangyang nodded. He also knew that this matter was of great importance, and no conclusion could be drawn based on the current situation. And the foreign leaders were all stunned, and they could not believe the magical scene before their eyes. Great Ain country, what is this? Sakura country, oh my god, this is unbelievable. Russia, oh my god, what did I see? The United States. Gwangju Satellite Launch Center. On the big screen, Star Exploration number 1 was supported by a soft white light. Zheng Mingyang came back to his senses, took a breath, and said in shock, "What is going on?" Zheng Mingyang had given up just now, thinking that the plan had failed, but he did not expect such a scene to come. And at this moment, before he could think more, the excited voice of the technicians came. "Report. The lunar magnetic storm has passed, and the Surface Command Center has regained contact with Star Exploration number 1. As soon as this was said, everyone present was stunned. Immediately, there was a burst of cheers. Yeah. That's great. It's okay. It's okay. It's really great. Haha, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. I finally understand the meaning of this poem. It's too early to be happy now. I wonder if we can correct the landing angle of star exploration number 1. Yes, that's right. Zheng Mingyang heard this without hesitation and immediately said to the technicians, quick, try to control star exploration number 1 to correct the landing angle. Yes. The technicians were excited and nervous and began to try. Now that they have reconnected with star exploration number 1, they can control it remotely. Zheng Mingyang said to the microphone again, star exploration number 1, can you hear me? Please answer if you can. After a second or two, a clear voice without electromagnetic interference came. Star exploration number 1 received. Surface Command Center, the lunar magnetic storm has passed, and all equipment is normal at present. Hearing this, Zheng Mingyang was completely relieved. He added, Zhao Heyo, the Surface Command Center is correcting the landing angle of the star exploration number 1. Please keep in touch at any time. Received. At this time, a small energy flame was seen on the left side of the star exploration number 1. Under the impetus of the flame, the tilted star exploration number 1 gradually straightened. Until it was fully erected, the flame disappeared. Everyone was happy to see that the correction was successful. But at this time, the soft white light also dissipated in an instant, as if it had never appeared. Without the support of the white light, the star exploration number 1 slowly descended. Everyone was immediately surprised. What exactly is this white light? Why does it feel like it is deliberately saving the star exploration number 1? It appears when it encounters danger and disappears after the danger is eliminated. Everyone was confused. Boom boom boom. Boom. At this time, the star exploration number 1 landed smoothly on the moon. Everyone held their breath, worried that something unexpected would happen. But after a few seconds, nothing happened, and the star exploration number 1 was still stable. Everyone was excited. Yeah. Success. Hahaha. Successfully landed a man on the moon. China did it. Great. We can explore the moon. Hahaha. Regardless of whether there are traces of the Great Desolation continent on the moon, our actions this time will be recorded in history books. The audience in the live broadcast room cheered when they saw this scene. Hahaha. Great. Successfully landed on the moon. Awesome. That's awesome. Finally we are going to start exploring the moon. Is the main film about to start? Hahaha. The foreign leaders were all shocked when they saw this. They had thought that China would definitely not be able to land on the back of the moon, but reality gave them a big slap in the face. China successfully landed safely. This is of great significance. Excluding whether there can be traces of the Great Desolation continent on the moon, China's ability to land a man on the back of the moon means a big problem, which has opened up a big gap with them. Great Iron Country, damn it. Watching China successfully land on the moon is more painful than my inability to land on the moon. Sakura Country, fake. Could this be fake? Is this a computer generated picture by China? The real situation is that just now during the lunar magnetic storm, China's manned rocket has crashed on the lunar surface. The United States. Quick, contact NSA headquarters for me. The Korean country, great. China should go explore quickly. I have prepared the materials for the World Heritage application. Quanjiu Satellite Launch Command Center. Zheng Mingyang was also excited when he saw the smooth landing. He asked into the microphone, Zhao Heyo, how do you feel? After a second or two, Zhao Heyo's response came. Everything is fine. That's good. From now on, you have 15 minutes to sort out and check the equipment cabin. After 15 minutes, if there is no problem, you will open the cabin door and step onto the moon to explore. Is there any problem? No problem. After a second or two, Zhao Heyo's firm voice came. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.